A very warm welcome from the delegation of the Catalan government to Germany. We are very happy to do our first technological talk today for 2022. Last year we had done 3 in total, and I'm very happy to welcome Federico Wiener, who is going to be the moderator of today's panels and keynote speaks. According to Professor Andy Mayalk, we have passed, or humanity has passed different revolutions in the last years, like the revolutions on the technological side as digitalization, and on the other hand, on biological sciences as the genetics. And these two revolutions convene in a completely new tendency for our next years and in our whole life to come, which can be seen in the appearance of esports, actually, because it is in esports where we have the digital revolution and the genetical revolution convening as to adapt new tendencies, a new way of living, moving, and acting, interacting with our lives. We have the esports movement, we can say, that conjoins innovators, creators, and performers in new surrounding and on our screens. And what this means for the humanity is the topic of today's talks. And what is for sure is that we all need to develop new skills for these immersive realities and artificial intelligence. And by playing games, gaming, and esports, we will shape our world of tomorrow. So although gaming has been criticized as a sedentary activity, we are sure that it's creating these new habits, these new skills, and actually players, in order to compete, have to lead a healthy lifestyle. They have to do sports. They have to do physical activities. They need to eat healthy and get their rest. So there's like an interesting part of the society, or new part of role models coming up through the tendencies of e-gaming. Society actually often criticizes the political sphere of remaining completely outside of these new tendencies that appear on our everyday scene, and we criticize politics for remaining absent in trending topics. And that's why the government of Catalonia wants to partake or form part of the debate, even though we are of course convinced that you can be a fan or an opponent of e-games, but what you can't do is remain absent in the debate. And that's why we are here today. And it's my pleasure to say also that we have already 145 companies in Catalonia employing around 4,000 employees in the field of esports, which is quite good, I think. And yes, I am happy to welcome a broad panel of experts from around the world, also from Catalonia. We have keynote speakers from Catalonia today. And now I would like to hand over to Federico Wiener, our moderator today.
Thank you, Mari. Thank you, everyone. I'm Federico Wiener. I will be the moderator of the roundtables today. I'm very honored by the Catalan government in Berlin to run this event. Also, thanks to the Loughborough University, the CHAC from India, and all the panelists that are gonna share their point of view about a trending topic, a buzzword that is on the market today, which is called esports. I started playing video games when I was 5 years old with my first Commodore 64, and I can tell you how much this industry has developed. Probably we are in a technological race that will not stop for the next centuries, but we need to be aware what this means for our societies, for our businesses, and for the people involved. And the question today in the eSports Data Club is, how trustworthy is this industry as of today? There is a big buzz behind eSports. Everyone is talking about it. Traditional sports entities are trying to go into this business basically because young people is playing and watching them. But at the same time, when everything is so shiny in the forecast, we should question where these numbers are coming from. So where are the others that we should be aware? What the experts are going to discuss today is the governance trustworthy? Shall we have new tools? Shall we have new technologies? Or we are okay, we're in the right path? Where is the right balance between one and each other? Frank Fields, an expert in sponsorship from Corsair, one of the most leading brands in the area of hardware for gamers, recently said, quote, "The hype around esports in the recent years and a rush of investment, mainly by venture capitalists and traditional sports organizations, has helped to generate a valuation bubble. In a nutshell, there are no common governance standards, regulations, and media audiences auditing. To address this topic, we need to discuss today what we can do as experts from different fields to renovate the image of the esports marketplace and to deliver to the audiences the best product available with the best forecast in a trustworthy environment. So, welcome again. I would like to remind you that this is a hybrid event. So for those who are attending on remote, please make sure to leave your questions on the YouTube channel. We will pass those to the experts across the different roundtables and also to our keynote speakers. And we are streaming from Berlin for those that are on remote. So warm welcome all over the world. We have people from Asia, we have people from America, from Europe, and we are looking forward to hear from you anytime during the event, which is going to start now with two keynotes. First, we have Dani Marco. He's the Director of Innovation and Digital Economy of the Generalitat of Catalonia. And then we will have another keynote from Jordi Vallès, which is the Director of Projects for the UFEC. UFEC is a union of sportive federations of Catalonia as well. This is the perspective from a pushy territory in terms of sports and also in terms of esports and digital economy. And then we are gonna deliver 3 roundtables with experts all over the world from 45 minutes each. And we are gonna end up around 6 p.m. Berlin time. So warm welcome everyone. Thank you, Mari, again for hosting us. And I think we can start with Dani Marco. I hope you are online. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Great, Dani. So 10 minutes, you are on the stage. Please go ahead. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon from Barcelona. I would like to thank the delegation of the government of Catalonia in Germany for organizing this event and inviting me to participate in it. On my responsibility within the government of Catalonia is to promote Catalonia as a digital innovation hub and to develop the new digital economy based on emerging technologies, new business models, and digital talent. Video games and esports industry are an obvious example of this new and innovative economy that we are promoting in Catalonia. Let me first talk a little bit about the Catalan video game industry, which is starting to be well known, developed, and can be an example of the following to follow from the esports industry that I will talk later. The Catalan video game industry, with about 150 companies that employs almost 5,000 workers and have a turnover of 700 million euros in Catalonia. This represents 50% of the total sector in Spain and positions Catalonia as one of the main video games development hubs in the Southern Europe. With a year growth rate of 16%, it is estimated that the Catalan video game industry will overcome the barrier of 1,000 million euros in annual turnover in 2024. The Catalan video game industry is very high internationalized. 80% of its turnover is outside Spain, with Europe and North America being the main markets for the Catalan games. Despite the strong growth in the recent years, we have still a very large number of small businesses. 50% of the Catalan companies of the video game industry have a turnover of less than 200,000 euros and less than 5 employees. That means that it's a growing sector, but it still need to create critical mass. On the other hand, the Catalan sector has stood out in recent years for hosting offices of the major international studios, such as King, Ubisoft, Riot Games, Smilegate, Scopely, and the last that has been landing in Barcelona, IO Interactive. One of the most relevant assets is our talent. The training offer of the video game has grown very much in the recent years. And this is to generate the professionals that are the key for this sector. But the sector basically needs creative and technology. And the talent behind that, it's very well known in Catalonia. We currently have 13 degrees, 10 master degrees, 9 higher degree training courses, and 10 specialized courses in video gaming. That ensures the growth of the sector for the coming years. Surely, this has been one of the keys to the main success for the sector, not only for creating new studies, also for attracting the talent. In this sense, the government's policy to strengthen the video game sector has focused on helping the professionalization of the sector, helping the financing of the projects, the internationalizations, and as I said, the attraction of international studies that thanks to the empowerment of the talent, both local and international talent that has come. But let's share our vision in the esports industry. Esports are a segment of the gaming industry with a great growth and popularity. Today, about 700 million people regularly follows esports and generate a turnover of over $1 billion worldwide. It's still well below the video games industry. They really needs to grow a lot to be at the side of the video game industry. But it's very strong, and it's just starting to generate a new industry. It's an industry that generates skilled jobs that which can help to economic growth and whose activities promote personal values and skills. It's very relevant to take account about the values of esports in our society. The period of confinement due to the pandemic meant the total cessation of face-to-face activity. And this has been a very strong impact in this sector. But at the same time that physical events has stopped during 2 years, the use of esports in the homes of the youngs of the people has a strong increase. Esports generates around 35 million euros in Spain and employs around 600 people. This is almost 300 or 400% of the global esports economy. At the audience levels, we are talking about 5 million esports enthusiasts, fans, and spectators, and it's the European state that has more professional teams. Catalonia is one of the places where we have more esports fans in Europe. In fact, the Video Game League Professional, ELVP, was promoted by a Catalan startup that has been bought later on by MediaPro Group. It's one of the biggest media companies in Spain and has become one of the largest operator of video game competitions in the world and the largest organizer of esports in the Spanish language, with a presence over more 30 countries and a global audience of 7 million viewers that positions the LVP as one of the most relevant worldwide. Esports mainly attracts young people under the age of 25. So it is becoming very attractive new channel for advertisers who are starting to take the steps to understand this new environment. We are talking about a new mass spectacle. So the companies like MediaPro dedicate to the audiovisual sector. One of the aspects of this industry is the entertainment. One of the aspects of this industry is really to a mass market entertainment model. Barcelona, as we have seen, it's the main video game hub in the Southern Europe and has the capabilities to be so in the world of video sports. At least we have the conditions to be a very big player. A powerful video game industry, an attractive audiovisual industry, a digital hub of emerging technologies, so artificial intelligence, 5G, or blockchain. We have excellent technical universities, excellent creative universities, competition organizers, permanent gaming arenas. Has been a growth new business to have places where a lot of young people goes to do e-games. Also, we have a lot of esports teams, and Barcelona is very attractive for different events and traditional sports. On the other hand, we have an untapped aspect of esports that is that the link of traditional sports with digital sports, esports. In this area, from my department, the Department of Digital Policy, we promote a joint initiative with the Union of Sports Federation of Catalonia, UFEC, that it's the entity that represents the 70 constituted esports federations in Catalonia. We launched together the Catalan Sports League, the Catalan eSports Leagues, that aim to create official eSport competition of the federations in Catalonia. Afterwards, Jordi Vallès from the UFEC will explain more details about this project. But it's very pioneering project in the eSports sector, bringing together the sports and the eSports to connect the sports the federations to this more innovative digital space. In conclusion, it is clear that there is a great opportunity in the esports sector. The same as has happening in the beginning on the video game sector, there is a requirement of professionalization of the sector and the creation and specific industry. We have some strengths. We have a professionalized traditional sector industry, but we need to connect with a new dynamics of this digital space. Perhaps the main challenge in this sector, it's a great ignorance on the details of this new environment from the institutions, from the companies, and from any other entities. It is very relevant to know the new dynamics on this environment and to position ourselves, to position our institutions in this new environment. Conference such as today that brings this sector closer to other audiences are very relevant and very important. We're talking about a sector with a very global market, but that needs also to have a root in the territory, are global, but also local. And the creation of national leagues and the different type of events that can be developed, and the connection of different communities are quite relevant on that. I am sure that in the coming years, this industry will grow a lot, and Catalonia will be a strong player on this area. Thank you very much. and we will be very open to collaborate with any one that wants to work in Catalonia in the sports. Thank you.
Daniel, insightful comments from government representative, which definitely needs to nurture new industries. And as you say, Daniel, it's a key sector because young people is paying attention to it, but also because it creates a lot of new positions and a new paradigm where people can compete and where they can develop their art. Because at the end of the day, let's not forget that it's some kind of culture expression to create digital art. Do you like to play video games, Maria, or not?
My children.
Your children. Okay, okay. Yeah, I used to play, but I'm too old for that now. But for sure, Jordi Valles, which is our next keynote speaker, the director of projects for the UFEC, the Union of Federation Unions of Sports in Catalonia, will share some insightful comments about how sport federations are migrating into this world, but also how the new teams in the esports industry are integrating inside governance environment like the one promoted from his institution. I hope, Jordi, you are connected and you can hear us. Welcome, welcome, Jordi. So the stage is yours. Please, you have 10 minutes. Expose what you are doing from your association to integrate the esports scene in Catalonia and how this can help other territories, other teams, other companies to deliver a better experience in the esports world.
Okay, hi everyone. First of all, thank you. Thank you, Mari. Thank you, Fede, and thank you, Laura, for organizing this event. I am the second, okay? And I am going to stick with the schedule. Okay, I will share the presentation that I have because first of all, we have a short video from my president, Mr. Gerard Esteva. And okay, I have here. Okay.
Good morning, everybody. First of all, I would like to thank the Catalan government delegation in Germany for letting us participate in this event. We are proud to explain the Catalan Esports League and the innovation and pioneering project developed by the federations of the Union Sport Federations of Catalonia with the collaboration with the government and particularly with the digital administration of the Catalan government. The sports of 7 federations take part in the league, showing the commitment of the entities for the digitalization of their activity. The Union Sports of Federation is also firmly committed to being the world of esports and mobilizing its fans to reach new audience. A commitment in line with the International Olympic Committee strategy, which launched its first esports competitions. Thank you for the opportunity, and I hope that you pass a good time with us.
Okay. Sorry, because
we are live, no problem, Jordi.
Okay. Now, okay, you can see the presentation?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Okay, our presentation, first of all, I will try to explain briefly who we are at, so that you can situate, okay? The Sports Federation Union of Catalonia was constituted in 1933. We have 89 years. It's a private and non-profit organization, defends and promotes sports in Catalonia. The union exists to provide a unified voice for support that can articulate the needs of all of its constituent members on a large scale than what each member is able to do on their own. Who is in our company? It's we are representing 71 sports federation. It's over than 12,000 sports club and more than 700,000 licenses federation members from different disciplines. Okay, this is the UFEC. Okay, now the project Okay, we have 4 phases in this project, but the history is a short history. As you know, we are in we started talking on 2019 because before the pandemic we had some items from IOC. As you know, there are 5 international federations like baseball, cycling, rowing, sailing, and motorsports that they are growing with the esports. And when we listen this opportunity from the IOC, we are in Catalonia, and the OFEC says that okay, it's our opportunity, and we identified a total of 24 video games with our federations. You know, the traditional sports and digital sports. Okay. The 4 phases that we have from 2020, because you know about the pandemic. Okay, it's not time to talk about it. Okay, in 2020, finally, we have no experience, but we launched the project with because we have a lot of meetings with the politics, you know, for the local politics, with some developers and our federations, because they are our partners and we need them. Okay, and this was the beta phase in 2020, and in 2021 we have the alpha phase. You know, we put here 40. We were in 40%, but okay, this was the first experience. We have a developer and we have 5 federations that they bet with this project. But you know, when you are in the technology, you have sometimes you have a good experience and you have a bad experience. Okay, it was the best experience, and then now we are in the 3 and in the ultimate phase. It's a second experience that we have 7 federations. And why I put in 2023 no the third expedition? Okay, it's just because you know, we are in the VUCA moment. You know, it's difficult for us to know what we do in the next phase or in the next step. Okay, our ecosystem that we project, it's okay, we are in the effect, in the right we have the Catalan government, the politics, okay, Daniel Marco is here representing the government. We have the federations like 24, as I said you. We have the channels. We have the OTT, and here in our company we have the OTT. Okay, the YouTube and Twitch channels. You know that maybe Twitch now it's better for the esports like YouTube, because it's more interactive. And we have we have 1 competition, but we have we put in 2 parts. The league. Okay, we started the league and we're doing more or less 1 or 2 months, maybe 3 in some video games. And the final event, okay, the face-to-face final event. And we put on the left the publishers, gamers, and sponsors. Okay, we have bad experience with the publishers. It's to be honest, it's not easy to talk with them, because you know, it's a real industry. This is not for people that wants to play the video games. It's a good and very high industry, but we have good contacts now, and we are in some video games. We are inside on this in some video games, and the most popular video games, it's very difficult. Okay, it's just for economy. We have the gamers and the sponsors. We have a good experience with Parlem. Parlem is a telephone company here in Catalonia. Okay. This is our ecosystem. Okay, what are we working on? Now, we have the platform. The platform, okay, you know that about the development of the platform, when normally you need minimum 6 months or 1 year. Okay, we have 6 months and 1 year. And now we have the competition manager for each federation. Each federation will have an easy use and intuitive platform. And this is the most important for us. Another thing is that it's a free subscription. We are not monetize this project for now. We will see on the future. Okay, and we have the section dedicated to ergonomic side day by day and musculature. Okay, this is important because you know about the critical of the esports, also for the parents. Okay, the timeline in 2022. It's okay. We had in April the subscription and communication networks. We had a lot of people. We will see in the next slide that they are in the subscription. Not all the people that they are in the subscription is participate in the tournament. Sometimes for the time. For the time, it sounds like not a. It's easy to compare to understand the people, because some of the people they want to play at noon, at 9, 10, or 11 here in Catalonia in the night. Okay, now in May we have online competitions, 2 competitions per federation, and in June 2 competitions more. Okay, and in July we have the final, the face-to-face, and they will arrive the best gamers that we will have in this previous competitions. Okay, this is the competitions, the 7 competitions. As I tell you, we we have 2,000 subscribers, 400 participants in this first competition in May. Motorsport, we decided that the Gran Turismo 7 is the one of the big video games that there are now in the world. Tennis, our tennis. Now we have not the best experience with our tennis, and we are trying to have another video game, and maybe it will be a mobile game. You know, tennis clash. The third one is baseball, MLB The Show. The fourth one is dance, Just Dance. It's good. We'll have some participants. Bowling, it's a PBA Pro Bowling. One of these, the 6, it's interesting because you know it's chess. We'll play in the new platform. It's liches.org. It's really good. We think that we'll have more than 200 people. As you know, the chess, maybe it's the first and old esports. And orientry, you know, catching features. It's a video game that it's made for this discipline. And the finals, we will have the UFEC Gaming Fest, and we are in contact with some companies, and now I can tell you that it's important because we'll put on the fest. It's not just for the sports; it will be for the for dancing, hip hop, or graffitis, and you know, the big fest for the new people, the millennials. You know, and the next steps, and this is the final slide. Okay, our challenges. We put on the left the industry. Most important is knowledge. This industry, it's really important. Business development. The events post-pandemic. It's important to have because some of the people they need these events. The new technologies, 5G and blockchain, and the last one is not the last. It's mobile gaming versus present, because you know the people now, all the people have mobiles, and it's important to this industry. It's focused on the mobile gaming. The law, no regulations here in Spain. It's really important. This is a good challenge that we need. The sponsors, sometimes they don't know where they put the money. And things versus contracts, the professionality, but it's important for us to have a good law. And the key is publishers. We need to opening that day opening for business, but it's okay. Okay, this is maybe in one round table or something like that. You will have time for this. Okay, and this is the subscribers that we will expect. It's 5, 15, and 25 in 2024. And finally, then the last slide, it's 7 new federations that we'll have for the next years: soccer and basketball, golf and motorcycling, and skate, wrestling, and American football. This will be the 14 federations that we will have in the next years. Okay, thank you. I don't know if it's 10 minutes or less, but
you did perfect, Jordi. Thank you so much for the insightful comments. Maybe a very good question before we finish with your presentation is, you mentioned how difficult it is for the sponsors to enter in a market where there is almost no regulation and no consolidated governance. How did you convince Parlem to sponsor the Catalan League now? Because I know it's a very good bet for a telco company to get acquainted to young people. What was your main selling point, how you approached them to get their support for this magnificent project?
I think that it was easy for us to have Parlem in our project because Parlem, it's a local company. It's just with the Catalan language, and they put all the efforts. And UFEC and the Catalan federations wants to speak in Catalan a lot, and this is I think that it was the key. But we are very close to have more sponsors for the next for the next project. It's the final event. In the final event, the sponsors they have a good opportunity because there will be more than 20,000 people in the final in the finals for the esports. Okay, we will combine in this final, in this face-to-face, we will combine our esports and the good esports like the League of Legends, Valorant, etc.
Okay, thank you, Jordi. Thank you for connecting and presenting your project. I think, Mari, we covered the picture of the industry in Catalonia. Quick comments, quick conclusions is that there is a good hype for esports in Catalonia as any other territory around the globe. This is a global movement. It's not something occurring only in Europe. It's also in Asia, probably the strongest market in the world, then the US, then Europe, then of course Africa and South America are also connected to the esports industry, but as more economical development you have in your society, more likely you have digital devices to play the games. But it's very interesting that in the UFEC they are also including mobile games, because in China, which is the main market for esports, because the number of Chinese people, they don't use too much devices like PlayStation or Xbox. They are mostly playing video games from the mobile. So this is something to consider, and very interesting that in Catalonia is opening that door. And now we will start at 3 p.m. So it's in a few minutes with the first roundtable of experts. I invite you and everyone else to participate in the roundtable called Data Trust. And we are going to discuss how esports content is produced, disseminated, and consumed in a market where trust is a question. So thank you again, Marie, for hosting us today. Thanks to Stefan Lobel. Thanks to Laura, Carlota Bru for helping us in the organization, and all the technical team and the supporters like Love for Our University. We get back in a minute with the first roundtable. Thanks everyone for staying in there online for the Esports Data Club. We arrived to the first roundtable today. We have a table of experts in data trust. So we are going to discuss for the next 45 minutes how the lead magnets, the social media impact, and other sources configure the esports data ecosystem and how trustworthy it is. You heard before from the UFEC, the experts of the Catalan government in terms of esports organization, how difficult is becoming the governance around this industry, this new marketplace that grows so fast that by 2025 we expect to have more than 3 billion revenue, 3,000 million revenue US dollars across the world, making per 3 factors. So when I started in the esports industry 2 years ago, it was only 1 billion. So it's triplifying the value globally, and that means a lot of speed, a lot of fever around, and also a lot of challenges and opportunities. So then, to discuss the data trust in the first roundtable, we have 3 guests. Álvaro Carretero, one of the editors and journalists at 2Playbook, a main marketing and content media agency specialized in sports and esports in Southern Europe. We have Luke Volley. He's an expert business developer at Populous in Asia. He's connecting us from Thailand. So good night, Luke, for you from here from Berlin. And we also have Lokesh Suji. He is from the Indian Esports Federation, also connecting in a different time zone. Thank you, Lokesh, for being here with us. And I will open this roundtable with you guys with a quote from one of the most important CEOs in the media and entertainment industry in Barcelona. He's Jaume Roures. He's one of the founders of MediaPro and the main shareholder of the Spanish LVP, which is the Liga de Videojuegos Profesional. He spoke about a potential industry bubble because of inflated statistics in the forecast. This was in 2019. He and other executives in the industry mentioned that the information reported from other agencies doing forecast, game publishers and streaming platforms is not 100% trustworthy, as there is a conflict of interest between what they publish and what they do. So maybe to start with this panel about data trust, Álvaro, you as a member of the leading marketing agency, 2Playbook, do you perceive a lack of trust in the market? How the media can address credibility for esports?
Yeah, I think honestly, Rory's opinion, at least at this time in 2019, as you said, I think it was really shared by a more general audience somehow. But I also think that perception has really changed, no? And also, it is good to remember that this same year, for example, in 2019, MediaPro brought 100% of the capital of the LVP, as you said, for 22 millions. So after all, not about the investment, knowing that, for example, the LVP official data published in our official registration here in Spain, it was like 10 million kind of. So, and aims to break even in short term, so not about investment at all for MediaPro and Roures. So this is more or less the kind of official data that we have to search. It is not that, it is always so complicated to find data in a macro level, but it's gonna happen in every sector, every area, but at least country by country, we could generate this kind of information for the audience, for investors or whatever. So I think also on the other hand, I believe still, Rory's opinion, it is still widespread, and despite the great growth the sector has or had experimented in these past years. So it is still necessary this formative work also on audience, on administrations, on investors, on everything, because esports, it is still and it's within the entertainment culture, and there is still a lot of information, and it is not because of lack of information or lack of credibility, but I think it is more of a cultural phenomena that every time that a new phenomenon appears, somehow human being, we tend to mistrust this phenomenon. I don't know. I think it is kind of cultural somehow. So this is where the formative works come, and also the media. We have a really strong message to send. And for example, in our case, we're a media organization also. So when we trust in the esports sector, it is not just because we ask for credibility or accountability. It is, for example, because when we say we will put the esports sector at the same level of soccer or fitness or other consolidated industries. So we're sending this message to our audience or readers that esports are relevant, or at least for us, it is as relevant as other industries. So this is the message that we are sending right now to consolidate the esports ecosystem.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Alvaro. Thank you. I will pass the word to Lokesh. Lokesh, thank you so much for joining from India. I think the problem between media interest and federations have been on the table exposed before. How do you address this question from the perspective of the Indian Esports Federation? Did you face such challenges when a sponsor approaches you and question the numbers on the table? How do you convince the sponsors to put their logo in that beautiful T-shirt that you are showing to us today?
Yeah, thank you, everybody. It's a pleasure being here, and namaste to each and everyone. And I hope everybody's keeping well and safe. So answering to your question, typically, in India, we have different set of challenges. I think it's not the question of trust, but in India, normally people misunderstand esports with playing, certain set of or rummy and things like that. So that is one big challenge which we have. And thankfully, India and obviously our Honorable Prime Minister, he himself is very gung-ho about the video games industry. And so we in India, there is a task force which has been set up to ensure that everything is lined up and we are able to establish India as one of the gaming countries of the world, one of the largest or one of the biggest gaming countries of the world. So typically, should not trust per se, but I think it's very difficult for a sponsor to kind of digest that. Okay, so this esports, some gamers playing a video game in a underground kind of environment, or sitting on a beanbag and playing these games, how games and things like that. So that is one thing which we have to kind of convince our sponsor that yes, it's a sport. And thankfully, International Olympic Committee has also recognized esports as a sport. So that is one thing which we largely face a challenge. And yeah, that's pretty much. But again, as I said, that the numbers are great. In India, we have got around 400 million online gamers. That's a very great number. In the terms of internet, we got cheapest internet in the world. As far as the smartphone penetration, because that is where esports is also moving. So we happen to be the second largest country as far as the smartphone penetration is concerned. So that way, we are very well established in the terms of the numbers, but it's really very difficult to convince a sponsor that this is a spin to it. Because again, their minds are still not able to digest that. How can, if you play a video game, how can that thing be a sport? So,
thank you, Lokesh.
that's where it is. So, in Asia, yeah.
I will ask you to check your connection, because we lost you for a little bit, and we were trying to struggle a little bit to get your specific answer. So maybe you can check with our technical team while I introduce our next speaker, which is Luke. What's going on with your internet connection? Maybe, I don't know if we need to connect you from a different channel or just turn off the camera to get more bandwidth. But thanks for the answer. And the last panelist on this data trust I want to introduce now is Luke Volley. He is the expert business developer at Populous, a company based in Asia, in the APAC region, the largest esports region, by the way, with large, expert experience in different aspects of the industry in this area. Luke, you are connected from Thailand, so very welcome. Thank you for your time. And I would like to ask you, as someone involved in the entertainment industry, how do you see sports and gaming merging from this digital metaverse, this digital world that we are all in, into physical spaces? I think this is your area of expertise, and you have been working very much in moving the events in front of the real eyes of the people and not between a device. And do you think this can contribute to increase the trust on the events? Because otherwise everything is non-tangible, we cannot touch it. But when we see the event, then we feel it, it's in there and it's real. What is your perspective on this, Luke?
Yeah, absolutely. It's exciting at the moment as we come out of COVID, just to see people start to have in-person events. So who I work for, Populous, design stadiums and arenas, and that might be Tottenham Stadium in EMEA, and it might be T-Mobile Arena in the US. And for a lot of the esports work, we've had people come to us seeing the stats and say, we want to build an esports stadium. And in most cases, we say, not yet. The industry is not ready for it. You've got to look at your specific country, your specific region, and what the community capacity is looking for. It's really important when someone's looking at esports, they look at their location. How much esports is engaged in it, how much movement is in the market. Asia is a big market for esports, but every country is different as well. So where I'm based in Singapore, there's a big push, and it looks like at some point we'll have a bit of a home of esports there as well. In Australia, it's maybe a couple of years behind, but you can still see when we compare it to, say, the US or the Europe market, where things are headed towards. And what we're seeing a lot of at the moment is not necessarily esports stadiums or arenas, but really a home of esports. So one example is in Melbourne, which is called Fortress, where you've got a gaming lounge, you've got a small arena of about 1,000 people, and then there's a bar and restaurant, because you're bringing together all the people that love esports or gaming, so they can watch League of Legends people play it. They can also, go back to doing card games and just bring the community together, because then you're finding who the sponsors are, who your teams are, and finding that real connection with people. It's definitely growing in APAC. We've seen a big growth in America over the past year. And especially as we come out of COVID, it's a great opportunity to bring teams together. Just this morning, I was going to visit a team based in Thailand who they've kind of come together in an apartment so their team can train and be together. And you just start to see more of that come about. It's really exciting.
Thank you, Luke.
I just want to say it's so great to have you all here. I mean, you're really around the world, and we are talking about the same experience. Here we in Berlin, you're placed in Singapore, India, Catalonia, and so it's really a good experience. And thank you for giving us your time. I mean, it's night in India. Thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you. Maybe this is a question for the general panel. Feel free to participate, Mary, by the way. I know you like to play Pac-Man sometimes. So what are the common misconceptions that people have around the esports business, guys? I mean, how we can combat those misconceptions and communicate more effectively what the esports business is and what it represents: an opportunity, a business opportunity, a growth opportunity for other individuals out there. Three of you have many different profiles: media, federation, business development on a private company. How do you think those misconceptions are, and how you can combat, or we can combat those to overcome the challenge of the esports industry? Who jumps into the swimming pool?
Okay, we'll go first because we are the media, so we are just like the final step in the chain. So I think we have this work to do, especially to arrive to this new public, not just in a fans perspective, but as I said before, we are like a 360 degrees project. So we talk about a lot of industries. So putting them into the same level, it is the first thing that we should do, especially to put esports in value. Because if you visualize that they are like this, or readers can have this same perception. So in our case, it is like the first step. And also, for example, I can just speak for the Spanish esports organization, but they are the first interested in if we do something like this, because they know that they need this kind of exposition, and they don't need just the esports concrete media, but they need to jump into this mass market, not just in terms of generate business, but also in terms of communication. So they insist so much that we journalists have to get down to earth. And sometimes we do, or we make a lot of mistakes, for example, because we take things for granted and we use some terms, some organizations, some leagues, some teams, and we forget that there is a lot of people outside that don't really manage these kind of terms. So it is this formative work, it is still necessary. So at least here, even or despite the enormous growth ecosystem or the enormous growth of esports ecosystem, it is still need, or there is still a necessity of this work that we journalists should do somehow. So I think this is the first thing. And also, for example, when we publish about the official revenue that we take from the official data, not just from associations and everything, but just going into the investors here in Spain. So this is also important because we are putting in value that they have official data and how their business model is constructed and how they are developing their ecosystem. So these official data are really important in this phase of getting more credibility, because it is also accountability that if you're in net loss, maybe it's just because you're investing. And this is the kind of information that we have to explain to contextualize what they are doing and where they're going.
Right. Look, what do you look after when you need to see this challenge? What is your decision-making points to decide where you invest on your efforts on the esports industry, and what do you think are the misconceptions that people have about the industry?
Largely agree with what Alvaro said. It's a lot to do with communication and just being transparent. So when he's talking about numbers, it's just making sure that those numbers are real and exactly where they apply to. There's the misconceptions of that there's a lot of money in this space, which there is, but there's different levels of where you can get to it. And it's just being honest with people, not to give them the great hope because you're going to make some money out of it, because at that point you pull away from the industry. So it's always fact checking for anything that we do, as well as for the client, to make sure that if they are going to invest in it, they're investing in the right thing. And the other point is just not shutting down the conversation. A lot of people look at esports and go, oh, it's not a sport, or, it's just people playing games downstairs in their basement or something. It's being ready to have those conversations and just, handling it well. Don't shut it down. Talk to them about it. Talk to them while you're excited about it. For us internally, we started a Rocket League competition, so everyone knew, what we were doing. And we actually had, the whole of APAC watching the final series between Bali and Brisbane, and we had commentators, and people actually understood why it's interesting. People wouldn't normally watch it, but you just need to find a way that, the person that you're speaking to, how do you get them engaged in it? It's very easy to shut down and say, well, you just don't get it because you're older or whatever it is. But it's just really being open and honest and having that communication with people.
Look, you mentioned fact checking. How do you certify your fact checkings in front of third parties? What do you look after? What do you show to certify such facts?
Yeah, often, it might be reaching out to a journalist to see what the details of it was. If it's coming from a specific team or a specific player, often we'll try to reach out to them to get the exact numbers. And often if we can't find the right information, we just don't show it. It's very easy for people to show the big numbers and say that's out there, but if you haven't checked it yourself, you shouldn't be revealing it to people. It's always going to the source as much as possible before it gets presented to a client.
Something very basic, but also difficult sometimes to do, Lokesh. What is your view on this from a so huge country like India? Because let's say that in a smaller market, you take your car and you drive, right? From Barcelona, you go to Olot in 1 hour, and then you check it in front of your eyes. But it's not so easy to do in India, Lokesh.
Yes, very right. And see, I think fact checking is important, but again, it becomes very difficult. See, typically, I'll just give you an example. Like, take for example, there is a tournament which is streamed live on, let's say, YouTube, right? So, or YouTube, and then similarly, you would do certain set of, let's say, marketing on social media. You'll get certain set of impressions, right? So, let's say if we are streaming a match or a tournament on YouTube, so we should go back to the sponsor or to our business or somebody who's investing into our events or esports with actually the number which an investor or a brand needs is a unique viewers on your stream. But typically, what people will do is that they are streaming on multiple platforms. Obviously, like if I'm a esports fan, I would watch it. Let's say at times I watch it on YouTube, at times I watch it on Facebook, and let's say Twitch is kind of dead in India, but obviously there are certain set of local Indian streaming platforms also. So what I'll typically do is I'll club all those things and present it to the journalists also, to the media, and then similarly to the investor and similarly to the sponsors. Now, when this kind of a data is sent, obviously the journalists who are involved into eSport, they know, and obviously they'll come back with asking the right question that out of, let's say, if you say 1 million views you got, how many were the unique one? And what is the breakup amongst these particular platforms? Mm-hmm. But when you go to, let's say, an investor, typically a VC investor, he may or may not, have that kind of insight that, okay, so these are the numbers which we have to look at. And then obviously, when you go back to those brands, and obviously brands have got a very well established kind of a marketing team. They understand all the nuances. And obviously, but then what typically I've seen is that people start playing around with those numbers. And that is where somewhere, as a partner, so you should not work with your sponsors or investors as a vendor kind of a relationship, but it should be more of a partner relationship. Mm-hmm. If the numbers are less, go back very transparently with the facts. Obviously YouTube and all these platforms give you unique impressions and all those things. Go back to your sponsor very transparently. Okay, so this is what it is. If you're not able to achieve, let's say, whatever numbers you have committed, don't overcommit. I've also seen, cases wherein, organizations and teams also go and they overcommit their numbers to the sponsors. And when they're not able to achieve, they get into, some kind of a hanky-panky, or they start playing around with the numbers and they present it to the sponsors or the investors. That way, typically you'll see that the investors will not come back, the brands will not repeat. And, so that all these things become very challenging. So I think it's very rightly said that, it's always good to be very honest and transparent. Thankfully, because it's a digital environment, whatever numbers you're quoting, they can always be fact checked because all these platforms have got certain set of tools which are there.
Thank you, Tri, for your comments. And let me introduce another buzzword that goes on the side of esports, which is fake news. Fake news is everywhere, and online business is highly influenced by all these new sources of information that are not, let's say, traditional and have spread the word in different directions. So do you think that the fake news problem affects the esports industry somehow? I mean, both are digital, both are new, both are global spread. What is your view on that?
See, very honestly, so this is one thing which, will always has taken the industry backwards. And there is a reason why typically people get into the fake news and all those things is that one is that our sport is virtual. Largely, whenever all these esports gamers, they play virtually behind a pseudonym. Like, for example, when I play, my playing game name is the Awesome Ninja. So people who know, okay, so this is Lokesh, they know, but largely people don't know who the Awesome Ninja is, right? So I'm hiding behind a virtual name. And people have not seen my face. They don't know how old I am, where I live, which country, which city, right? So these gamers, and obviously I am also a hardcore gamer, right? So I will say that we gamers ourselves, right, are very, what's most important for us is to brag. Okay, so this was the match, I defeated you. Now, somewhere if you lose, So you will try to figure out means and mechanisms to defame or to demean your opponent. And I think the biggest problem here, why we see a lot of fake news and all those things specifically from our esports category, is because our audience is just, take for example, if I give you the India demographic, I'm sure these are the demographics which are across the country, across the world, which is like 14 to let's say 21, 22 years old. Now they start gaming at the age, obviously they might or may start gaming at an earlier stage, but earlier age. But when they get serious in the terms of, let's say, playing games like the Counter-Strike, Dota, or all these esports titles, they're typically 14, 15. Now, this particular age group is not as mature as, let's say, you, me, or the traditional sports people. And that is where they don't realize what is that they're doing. They will not even think that, what will be the repercussions of any such fake news being spread. Right. So that is one big thing. And in India, we have seen a lot of these fake news. And obviously, we ourselves have faced a lot of fake news. People just saying, to an extent that, certain set of papers also printed something, and then we spoke to them, then they regretted it, they deleted their articles and other thing. But now another, so this is one sector, as far as the playing audience is concerned. But when you look at typically how because this is a new industry, right? So this is not, thankfully, it is taking a shape of a proper industry. Like most of the countries are getting involved with, as I said, Indian International Olympic Committee and everybody getting very seriously involved. Now, the problem is that the gamers who were, let's say, 10, 5 years, before, they were actually gaming. Now, these are the people, because they have interest in esports, they are actually looking at getting into the businesses. They are starting up their, let's say, ventures, or they are joining some video gaming companies and all those things. But the mindset still remains the same. So I think that this fake news kind of a thing will always be there because of the demographic which we address. But simultaneously, I think as far as the industry is concerned, this industry will typically take time to mature. See, I'll give you a very simple example. Let's say if 10 years back I was playing with, let's say, Luke, right? And me, Luke, we were good players. He used to defeat me. But somewhere I have something. No, I have to let, I have to kind of defame or try to let Luke down. But tomorrow, when I get into a company or I start a company, that thing will still be there in my mind.
Right. Alvaro, what is your view on this? You come from the media perspective. And please, Luke, feel free to enter the discussion and interrupt Alvaro. The idea is that you also can discuss between the three of you. No need for me to moderate that. Alvaro, is this a major threat, the fake news problem for a digital product like eSports? Yes or no?
I think yes, in terms of this is a big problem, not just with esports, but with media in general, society in general. So it is I think this is the fake news. It is a much broader debate, probably cultural, social, and I don't know. It is even from a media perspective. I think there is a problem here because a lot of media are basically renowned to be like this fourth power, maybe that we should be, and to present facts and do our work. So there is now like not a problem, but also the consumption has changed. So for example, if we are talking that we could inform in different platforms, in different outlets, and probably all of us use some podcasts and some other information source to get informed ourselves, not just the traditional media or digital media. So especially with esports that they are broadcasting in different outlets also, it is, I don't know if it is more common or if they are more, it is easier to contribute to this misinformation. I don't really know because I'm not this kind of expert in this, but I think this is not just an esports problem. This is just cultural, and it is so complicated to address that, sorry, because you really have to face this debate in a really broader scale. So it is so complicated to land in, at least in my case, to esports. In my case, I can just speak because I can just publish in the information on the source I trust, and I always will try to get this information probably double or triple verified before I publish it. But problem is that I cannot speak as well as other medias, and I'm not talking about anyone in concrete. You don't not I'm not like this, but it is in general. I'm like a broader problem, not in Spain, not in US, not in any country, but it is the reality we have now. And this is the problem with fake news, that you don't know where to trust, who to trust. So you really have to earn this confidence of your readers or the audience or whatever. So this is the problem. This is the problem of fake news, is that we can publish basically anything that it is true, but with just one tweet, someone can spread this misinformation, and it is so complicated uh, to check it and then to give the other part of the information. So an esports problem, I don't think this is the biggest problem, but yeah, I think it is, because it is a problem shared basically by the whole society.
Luke, what do you think about the trust on this regard with the fake news, how this affects the esports? And of course, when it comes to personal relations, as Lokesh said, or a professional work like Alvaro, you can certify looking at the eyes of the person as you know, but what do you do when you don't have that luxury because you are entering a new market or because you are entering a new business, and then there is no chance to, let's say, check face-to-face with that person, you don't know them from before, and you need to operate with business data. Does this fake news effect is affecting the development of the esports industry?
Yeah, and I agree with what the guy said. And, the big thing for us is the fact checking that you've got to do. The big issue with esports is that there's so much excitement behind it. People want to get into it as quickly as possible. And, it's like NFTs and crypto at the moment. Everyone's jumping in, and of course they get scammed because they're not looking. They're on FOMO, fear of missing out. They're trying to jump in, and they're just going, I'm going to trust this bit of information I found, and I'm going to jump into it. It's just another kind of reminder that you just need to check it before you invest in it. It is very hard to get people to do that all the time, but it needs to happen. And, as esports grows and as we get more esports athletes that become, have some fame to them, it's another thing that the industry is going to have to get ready for, because you look at all the sporting athletes that go through that sort of same system where you've got people faking who they are, or the media that comes out that can be, again, fake news about the person. It's going to start to happen to esports athletes. And at the moment, a lot of the sporting athletes get training about media. It's making sure the esports guys get the same, because it is social media. It's very difficult. There's no way to hide. If you want to be popular, you've got to have social media, but it just means you're going to receive all the hate and all the good. So it's very difficult, but yeah, as much as possible, you just got to take a moment and check.
Thanks, Luke. I want to remind the people on the stream that they can post their questions in the YouTube channel for our panel of experts. We are going to address them at the end of the panel, which is going to occur in 10 minutes from now. So we are addressing the last part of the discussion. And the question is how the esports data ecosystem, guys, will be in the future. What is your opinion as an example of open data policies that have been addressed in other industries as a solution to the question of trust on the information? Because when it's open data, everyone can access, and it's, let's say, more trustworthy, more certified than other, let's say, one-shop data source. What do you think about it?
So it's a see as far as today's environment, when everything is kind of digital, I think the security or the data protection actually becomes the key. And I'm again, my comments and my inputs were purely from an India perspective. India as a country has realized that it's important to protect the data of its citizens. And that is where our government has come up with a policy that whichever companies or social media companies or whichever other companies wherein they are collecting any kind of data in any way and any form, they need to have their data centers, or they need to basically have that information within India. And that is the reason why you saw that Indian government banned PUBG Mobile, a mobile esports game title, because obviously whatever data our players, and obviously these are young generation, so all our youth's data was going and residing out of what we are being told is that data was being stored in the servers in China. And similarly, very recently, our government also blocked another game title, which is called Free Fire, and for the same reasons. So the data protection, and I think Indian government, I know from an industry perspective, there are always some kind of a repercussions if a famous game or a game which is largely played game gets blocked. But from a long-term perspective, I think it was a good decision because data is the key today. So whosoever has the data or whosoever controls the data, that particular company or that particular organization is gonna use it whichever way they want to use it. So I think that was a good stance from India. So whatever organizations and the game developers, not only the game developers, but also when you look at the big giants like Facebook, Google, Twitter, everybody has kind of confirmed and ensured that to Indian government that they have bought in their servers within India and things like that. I think data protection, and this is again my personal opinion, that I think the biggest worry factor for all of us today, whosoever is using, let's say, Google or a Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, whatever, I think these organizations generally pose the biggest threat. Now, today, what I am doing, like I'm an Android user, right? So whatever I'm doing, wherever I'm going, right? Whatever I'm chatting with my friends on WhatsApp or whatever, I think every information is there with Google. Now, these are the set of people whom we should be more worried about, or rather in the terms of, let's say, a video game or an esport system, because purely from an esport side of it, or a video game side of it, there are two sources wherein typically your data gets collected. One is, of course, when you start playing a game, you register on a game platform, whatever that game is. And the second is when you participate in, let's say, whatever esports tournaments happen, you fill up your form, you give your, let's say, whatever identification, your phone numbers, your email ID. So the data protection in the term and that is where typically, as an esports athlete, wherever or whenever you fill up such kind of a forms, you should definitely read that particular term which says that talks about that how their data will be used. Because at times I may ask my players to, let's say, register, but my term says that I may be free to use the data whichever way I want, but that's not correct. So you should specifically, as an athlete, you should take care of it. And as a game developer, or if I'm just playing a game, but the problem, and that is where you can at least, as a player, you can go back to a tournament organizer and ask him to change his rules and regulations. But going to a game developer, let's say going back to Activision or Riot to change your regulations just because a couple of things. So that is where typically governments and obviously organizations like federations or globally, so these organizations can actually will have to force the game developers to. Now, thankfully, I think most of the game developers have realized, because similarly, GDPR is something which is there in Europe and Americas. So I think things will fall in shape as far as but these are a couple of things which, as an esports player or a video game player, you should ensure that these are well intact. Yeah.
Thanks, Lokesh. Alvaro, Luke, what is your opinion about a new policy on business data on esports? Is open data the solution for that? I ask you to be very direct on your replies because we are running out of time and we want to hear your opinion on that regard.
Just to be really, really fast, I will just land it this debate into to the platforms debate, especially because it is like so big, and you can address the open data from different perspectives. But just for example, if we're talking about the platforms and if they should share more data with other organizations, for example, with clubs. And I will just use an example. Recently, Football Club Barcelona recently admitted that basically it couldn't process data or it could just process data for just like 10% of their followers in social networks. So why? Because they don't have access to this data. So it doesn't really matter how big their community it is, because they cannot really monetize or they cannot have this information about their fans, and they are their fans. But it is Twitter data or Instagram or Facebook data or tweets data. So this is the problem. And I really trust and I really consider the open data solutions, because they are probably a solution, not the only one, but I think they are. And also, I'm like a son of open culture and free software movement. So yeah, I really believe in that. But also because the more open these platforms will be, I think the more opportunities they will generate to other organizations. But also it is a second debate of how much power they want to lose, allowing other organizations to have this data, and what kind of role they should play in case they will give this access to esports club or other organizations or whatever. So it is kind of complicated, but yeah, I really think that this open data will be really useful, and not just for the organizations, but also for investors, because they could measure what kind of investment they should do, the kind of audience they could have, or the kind of return they could have in their investments, also for the brands. So yeah, I think it could really help growing the ecosystem.
Look, will you pay for the access for a tool like Alvaro just described, a tool that can certify that the information that you are getting is trustworthy on the industry to make such business decisions? Do you think that a policy like that will be appealing for a person like you in the industry?
Yeah, I think definitely. And, there's a lot of frustrations with whether it's game developer, like someone like Twitch, and everyone in between trying to do different innovations in there. Because right now there's not a lot of data sharing between them. And as you say, if there's some open data sources there, it can make it better for what the end user is going to see. So what the people on Twitch are going to see, what the people, watching on YouTube or something, and what they're going to experience. You look at something like what Bundesliga has done with connecting with AWS to connect all the data from all the different teams. Now, when you're watching it, you've got all this overlay of information and data for the end user to actually see. Those sorts of things, it's very difficult in esports because there's no real structure that you've got around it. Something like Bundesliga, look at Premier League or even the F1, there's a structure to it. F1's still growing that kind of structure, but you can see what you can get out of it. And, I think once we get there and once some of the competitions get a bit bigger than the developers, that's when we're really going to start to see the potential of things. Because right now, the game developers hold the key. If they don't want to give it to you, you don't have a choice. If they want you to put on an event, you're going to put it on. So once the power kind of shifts around a little bit more, these sorts of opportunities are going to open up.
Do you think for the three of you, this can change in the short, mid, or long term? How much do we need to wait for this to occur?
I'd say it's short. Esports is young and all this stuff moves fast. I'm hoping fast. Yeah.
I would want to differ. It will not happen fast because these game developers are very strong organization. They are billions and billions of dollars worth of companies, and they will not see, because if you start giving out data, you would typically lose out, and that is where a company like Valve stands out. Like Valve's mostly, I'm purely talking from a game perspective. They've got open APIs. You can build a lot of platforms around with that. You can build let's say a simple website which collects your statistics. How well are you playing? It becomes easy for team owners to kind of analyze which players are doing good, which players are doing bad, which player needs improvement. How do my team match up with, let's say, a team from America, Spain, or Germany? But when you today look at, let's say, other game developer like Electronic Arts, I'm so sorry, but Electronic Arts happens to be a bad example or a good example of a not open environment. Because ultimately we are playing that particular game. So the more open that game developer is, more ancillary units or ancillary businesses can be established. So there are only two ways. The game developer will not budge. And the problem is that more the mobile game developers are coming in, they largely don't understand esports, just because again it's a hype. They build some tools around, doing a tournament with spectating and all those things. They're still struggling to kind of fix it. But even for that matter, Tencent, like PUBG Mobile happens to be a good game in the terms of the volume being played. But PUBG Mobile again does not give you an open data wherein people can, let's say, if we are doing a tournament. Obviously, PUBG Mobile is banned in India, but let's say Luke is doing that tournament. He wants to analyze that data and show it on the stream and things like that. But PUBG does not allow you to do that. It's only PC they do it to a certain extent. But Electronic Arts, in the previous presentation, I saw a lot of these games talking about FIFA, sorry, football, tennis, and this is it was exciting to see the games mentioned. But I was just wondering, what if these game developers have given their APIs and all those things? A lot of things can happen. See, it has to. But again, as I said, very honestly, I think it's the government which needs to take a stance. The respective governments should tell the game developer, okay, so we will allow you to do this provided you kind of open up your data and APIs and whatnot, so that at least our industry grows. We are able to grow this particular sport or this particular industry properly. See, without open data, it can't happen. So for a game like, let's say, football, FIFA, or cricket, from India perspective, it's very easy. Whatever is happening, it's there. Somebody needs to kind of see what's happening, type it down, and share it with whatever.
Right.
But for a game developer, yeah.
Thank you, Lokesh. Alvaro, you need to close it. You are enthusiastic on open source, you said. Everyone in this table agreed that that's beneficial for the industry, but what's going on? Why not everyone is doing this, Alvaro?
Yeah, I really share these opinions, but I'm more pessimistic about the short-term period that maybe we will see open data or open data from platforms and other outlets being shared. So I think we're still in a really, really tremendous fight for the data, not just in esports, but in general in this digital society. So I think it's going to be really, really hard that these companies that now has this basically monopolistic this monopoly in control of their data, they want to basically just share it. So I think there are a lot of beneficials right now, but it is the same, for example, when we're talking about the owners of the video games and the competitions, because finally publishers are the owners, and right now streaming platforms are also the owners, or social media are the owners. So this whole ecosystem has an owner right now, different ones, but they are really big tech companies. So this is the problem. And I don't know, this is one problem that the industry will have to solve in short term. And I agree with Luke that part of it will solve it in short term, because esports organizations are basically pivoting to construct their own business model despite all this situation, and they're succeeding. So there are right now a really big necessity of get access to this data, but I think the whole problem will be addressed in more middle term, probably, because right now attending to the complete situation, not just in sports, I think it is a really, really big issue that isn't gonna be solved in short term, but just part of it, probably.
Okay, Alvaro, thank you for your conclusions. Thanks for all our roundtable of experts, Alvaro Carretero from 2Playbook, Luke Woolley from Populous, and Lokesh Suji from the Indian League of Esports. I know some of you are connecting from a very different time zone. Thanks again for your effort. And I think it was very insightful, Marie. I really get the conclusion that a change is needed, and maybe you can give us a perspective from the government, right? I mean, governments have adopted some more open sources of data for different areas. Do you think that's extrapolable to an industry like esports?
Yes, of course, because open data in the end of the day is the idea of transparent, modern, and democratic administration. Because if a government is in charge of data, so it's obliged morally and ethically obliged to make it open for the public, who is in fact paying for this through the taxes, through public money. And but just an idea I want to add, without opening no topic, because we need to take a small break. But it's not only about data, in fact, it's also about the quality of data, I think we need to talk about.
Right. Good conclusions. Thank you, Marie. Thanks everyone for joining us on this first roundtable of the Esports Data Club seminar today. I remind you that we are going to start the second roundtable in 10 minutes from now at 4 p.m. Berlin, 3 p.m. London, and you need to change the time zone to where you are looking this event from. But we are going to join back in 10 minutes from now with the second roundtable, which is about the sponsoring challenges. What's going on with the sponsors, with the brands pouring money inside the esports industry with the insecurity of, let's say, a fluffy environment, as some of our experts expressed it before, that they are not so much trustworthy, there is no governance, there is no structures like in other events, but at the same time, esports is so hot, is so much a buzzword today that everyone wants to get in and quickly. So see you again in 10 minutes, 4 p.m. Berlin time, second roundtable is starting. Welcome again to the Esports Data Club from Berlin. I'm Federico Weiner, Marie Krapetz, the representative of the Catalan government in Germany. We are our hosts today for the second roundtable of experts. This second roundtable is about the sponsoring challenges. Sponsorship is still paying most of the esports party, we can say. So we have what they call endemic and non-endemic brands on marketing language playing in the field of esports. But how they define this money and this allocation of money in the market? How do they measure their success by return of investment? What role the agencies are playing and who is benefiting the most? This is the topic of the second roundtable, which is integrated by 3 expert panelists with very different views and also locations. First, we have Amol Patil from the Global Sport Innovation Hub in India. Amol, very welcome and thank you for connecting on your nighttime with us in Europe. We also have Ana Oliveras David, also called Anouk, which is her nickname as a former professional gamer and nowadays CEO of Squarebox. Squarebox is a company training esports players, if I am right. And finally, John Davidson from the Davidson Learning Company, but also board member of the Esports Trade Association in the US. So we are connecting 3 different continents in this roundtable, the second roundtable of the Esports Data Club. Very well welcome for everyone in the room. And let me start this roundtable with a quote from Frank Fields, an expert sponsoring manager at Corsair. He said that the hype around esports in the recent years contributed to create a bubble. And this bubble basically is making everything more difficult. There is a fog around esports because this hype that was created between investors, between players, between fans, between media, did not release the best ecosystem for trust inside the esports. So my first question is for you, John. How do you are helping brands and agencies to understand how to engage with the esports community through consulting, through content, with the speaks? Where is the gap, John? How we can help the industry to get into a more trustworthy ecosystem?
Yeah, thank you for having all of us, first of all. And this is a problem that a lot of people are struggling with. And I really think it greatly comes down to improving the business practices of the esports industry. And that's what our focus is at the Esports Trade Association. Essentially, we have an industry that has pros and cons like every industry. And our industry is run by a lot of young people. And that is fantastic from the standpoint that they are people who understand youth culture. They got their finger on the pulse. They're very innovative, a lot of energy. But one of the drawbacks is a lack of business experience, simply because if you're young, you have not had the opportunity to have a lot of years in the business world. Now, in typical traditional industries, you have professional business experts who have 20, 30 years in the industry and they can lead younger people. But there is this gap of understanding. Older generations typically just do not have a great understanding of the unique skepticism of gamers. And so they struggle to communicate. The org structure of esports teams is complicated compared to traditional sports. And so you have 2 groups of people who need each other who are struggling to communicate. And so Esports Trade Association is that bridge. I think the monetization models could use some help. Sponsorship is currently the #1 source of revenue in the industry, but sponsors, as the quote said, are struggling to receive an ROI on their investments. So it's a bit concerning when the #1 group of people funding your activity are not receiving the benefit or the reason why they are funding it. One of those reasons is media rights, I should say. So if you look at traditional sports, the vast majority of revenue is media rights. And a lot of that comes down to data. And so I think if you were to have 2 points of where you could improve these big business practices, it would be reporting back accurate data to partners, which is going to help with the media rights monetization model, and also activating for sponsors, being able to effectively take those dollars and turn them into positive KPIs for the brands.
Thank you, John. Very insightful. And let me go to you, Anna. We have the luxury to have you in the panel today. You have been a professional esports player, and now you're helping in many different deals, moving the business forward as a consultant, as a CEO of a Squarebox. So what do you think when it comes to sponsorship decision making? What are you being requested the most from brands that are knocking your door for your knowledge and saying, hey, Anna, what should we do in the esports industry?
Hi, well, nice to be here today. Actually, true, I've been in esports for a very long time, and realistically speaking, we are still learning. I think we are still on a process. We've done a lot of learnings for sure, and I think we have to be at least to share this with our possible partners or with all the people that wants to be part of this industry, that we are on a learning path. And when we speak about taking the best decisions in esports or how to do it, or all these questions that most of companies ask me when they want to join the industry, I always try to explain them that there's this part where you have to risk a little bit. You really need to risk, because there are many new projects that are just pioneer. They are the first people doing this thing. So you cannot tell them for sure what's going to happen. Of course, you can explain them what it is about, what are these things happening around them, why they need to understand pretty well the ecosystem first, because many companies or many brands come and say, well, I want to be in esports, and just tell me how, what do I have to put my money, and that's it. And it's like, well, wait, let's try to have these first few steps together. Let me explain you what it is, why we are here today after these 20 years. We are young, but many things have happened in this period of time. For me, it's my whole life. So it's a lot of things that they should learn at the beginning, and that I think that's something that we should always, the people that is in the industry, we should take care of making sure it happens. So at least they have the knowledge, and when they have the experience, they know what it's based on. It's not just like, oh, you didn't tell me this was like that, or you didn't tell me that in 2008 or 2009 we had a crisis, and it's because we didn't know how to measure what's happening, which are the impacts we are doing to the audience, this kind of thing. So it's many questions they have, but I think we should always go back to the beginning.
Thank you, Anna. Go back to the basics. It sounds simple, but it's not so simple when it comes to business on esports. That's why maybe Dr. Amol Patil, you can give us another perspective. You are a board member in the Global Sports Innovation Hub in India, which is powered by Tech Mahindra, one of the largest conglomerates of companies in the APAC region and for sure in the globe. And I am pretty sure that many of these stakeholders in such a corporation have knocked your door to say, what do we need to do in esports, Amol? And what do you reply? That's what I am curious about.
Well, first, thanks for the invitation and honor to be on this panel. So talking about addressing your question, Global Sports Innovation Hub, it's basically a dream. It's our dream, and we are still building it. It's a holistic program which is focused to share the target market insights and ensure acceleration for the upcoming incubation programs or the sports tech startups, and to tell them what is the market needs, what the brand building would be, and how to target the different segments. And primarily, we are focusing on the South Asian market first, and then we plan to expand further. Looking into the esports, which is one of the domain that we have on this particular program, what I look after, or what we as the executive members look after, is the strategic planning and the assessment of the product analytics, I would say. Because those two are the key important things which are needed for planning any acceleration or incubation program wherever you go for the business development. The focus of GSIH in the domain of esports would be market integration, product development, promotion of education, because that's very much needed at present, and we don't have any structured program in esports at the moment to gather the knowledge and all, because there are different segments and those are interrelated, and that is one more segment over there. And obviously the return of investment regarding the sponsorship segment, which has to be assessed first and then given insights to the upcoming project or upcoming sports tech startup. The hub is looking to support any esports related activities or technology or solution in a best way, which can work synergistically for growing in South Asian domain.
Thank you, Amol. Thank you for that. Thank you, three of you, for the introduction. I want to remind our audience that they can post their questions in the YouTube channel for our experts. And maybe let me continue with you, Anna. You mentioned that we are still learning. That's always a nice quote, because I think life is about learning. But when it comes to esports business, do you remember a specific experience where you wished that your recommendation was different after doing it? Can you share some expertise, some of those big learnings that we can take advantage from you and the audience can take advantage from you for not making the same path and take the shortcut?
I don't really have a huge example that can be like very representative. I know, for instance, that in the industry, I have seen a lot of times how brands try to get close to esports and do something, but without any kind of guidance. And then you really get to see the results, and it's like, wow, we just burned this possibility. It's gone. They are going to be so angry after that. Not something that I did myself, but I've seen that many times happening, and how brands, especially non-endemic brands that at the beginning were trying to get into pretty fast and then just not doing it the right way, because like I think it was John at the beginning that said we have to communicate with this young audience that has a different way of doing some things, and of course it's normal. And if you are trying to do something without having their advice, it kind of sounds from another place, like they don't really get it as a known thing, So for one of the first things you learn when you are trying to give advice to a brand, for example, for a project, is that they need to be part of the industry. They cannot look so external. I don't know if I make sense, but
do you mean authenticity? Maybe that's
yes.
what the esports audience requires the most.
Yes, and not following maybe the traditional ways of doing, I don't know, a campaign on a marketing campaign or things like that. You have to be more natural, maybe is the word, or more integrated. Like they want to feel that you care about what's happening somehow. That would be the thing. And as personally myself, what I could learn with Squarebox, for example, we don't teach players to play. We are trying to help have these profiles for the industry that you also spoke about at the beginning, that we need business people, but that people that also knows about esports, and that's what we don't have. We have the people that has been from the beginning, like me, but it's not enough people to make these things grow. So to make the whole ecosystem grow, we need people that is prepared to make it grow. Not only the young people that is so passionate about it, but also the experts that know much more things about the industry or any industry, but apply that to esports. And we had that problem in Squarebox when it comes about how to present things. For example, I put a lot of effort on making audiovisual very important on the whole project, and I've realized that for the audience it was not the main thing. They didn't care if it was less quality video, as long as they had the content. For example, it's something that I gave it so much effort, like I put so much effort on that, and then it was like, well, they didn't care, so why did I spend so much money on that? So that would be my learning, maybe.
Right, that's a good point. Thank you, Anna. Maybe John, you can tell us what are the most important KPIs to measure when it comes to audience engagement and gamers in the esports industry. Which consumer metrics do you want that are not yet available?
Yeah, so I would say it's so important to set expectations with brands when you are telling them about the opportunities in esports. And I want to be clear, there are sales opportunities, but that is the longer term proposition. And if you start with sales and that is your only focus, you will struggle to succeed in this space. So a great friend of mine, I got to shout his name out, Vinny Minicello, had a great quote he was sharing with me one time. He said, you need three things. You need awareness, understanding, and love. And love is what produces the sales. But you can't have love without somebody understanding your brand. You can't be understood unless people are aware of your brand. And so to go a little level deeper as far as your specific question of the KPIs, you want to start with those softer KPIs. So affinity, these are things that you can measure on social media specifically, and Twitter would be the proper platform for this community. So affinity, positive sentiment, how are people responding to your brand? After you spend some time engaging with whether it's content creators, teams, tournaments, content, etc., how has that shifted the comments, that sentiment, positive or negative? You can definitely measure growing your social media channels. That's a great indicator of how you're doing. And I would also say engagement is not only a great one to measure, but is one that this community is very strong with. So you might even see, let's say you work with a content creator, which I think is one of the better moves in esports, especially when you're starting. You might see a smaller audience for a content creator. And if you compared that to a football where you have these massive audiences, some brand might say, why am I putting so many dollars or any dollars towards a smaller following when I, with football, could reach, millions and millions? Well, the answer is engagement. They are passionate people who are spending more time engaged with your brand. And when you win them over, and the way to do that is by enhancing their experiences. And we can dive deeper into that if we need to. But when you win them over, this is a group that, while skeptical at first, once you win them over, they will champion your brand in the way that few other communities will. And then your biggest problem will be keeping track of your sales if you do it right.
Thanks, John. Maybe from India, do you agree with that statement, Amol, or you have a different perspective? What are the most KPIs to measure success between audience engagement on esports?
Well, yeah, I do agree with John, and as he said, those are the important KPIs that are obviously every business would look after to see the monetization part, because ultimately everything has to transpire into the business, and that would be there. What I would like to add here is, apart from the things that we just talked, the social value of the project has to be having one important thing that we can consider as a KPI, apart from the predictive analysis and the game analytics, which are usually done during these esports competitions, or maybe the industry that we look after. Basically, if you want to ask me what KPIs we look after, and here also in GSIH we are focusing on those things, is we look for overall growth, the KPIs for overall growth, maybe like the statistics and regarding the downloads, the time of installment, the signups, upgrades, how many times the game was upgraded, and how many times that was being engagement is there about the daily users, how many active users, how many times their retention, that thing. Obviously, another important aspect is user experience, which is quite essential these days, and every company or every developer is focusing more on that part, and make it much better experience, less crashes, minimum errors, and compatibility for all the devices and operating systems that are there in the market. Obviously, the focus also has to be on the latency time and the uptime when we connect to the servers, because connectivity is a big thing. And when I talk about that, in India, with the 5G is just coming up, and there is a connectivity issue at a lot of places, and this can be one of the important thing in terms of infrastructure KPI, which can hamper the game experience and the game itself. And that thing can actually be compromised in the overall outcome. Obviously, the monetization thing, we all know about that, the revenue per user things and the lifetime value about the project and those transaction costs and all. So I think that we must, we must have, because there are n number of KPIs, and it's not possible for every game or every game developer or esports company to focus on all these matrices which are available. So we should design those KPIs based on our understanding about the engagement and the community that it is catering, the esports gamers that we are targeting to that particular game. And then the KPI should be adjusted so as we go with the target market.
Thanks, Amol. Anna, which tools do you use when you need to measure some success of the players on the esports community? I'm not talking from a player performance perspective inside the game. I mean about reaching out audiences or impact of the brand that you recommended. Is there any technological advance that you are looking after or some tool that is essential for you? How do you otherwise question or make sure that those numbers are right when you present them?
Well, actually, I think it depends on different things. It depends on the product. It depends on the project. It depends on the objective you have with this project or product, where you want to go, what do you want to reach, and then you know which KPIs, and when you know which KPIs, you know probably which tools you need. I think in general, now it's very important, at least for esports, it's super important what happens in social media, that we know for sure. And then it also depends on the country. In Spain, everything happens on Twitter. If you are not on Twitter, you are just not there. And if you miss the meme today and you post it tomorrow, you're probably gonna, like, everyone is gonna make fun of you because you've been too late. So
right.
What happens on Twitter would be kind of one of the things to take in consideration. Not only followers, it's more of an engagement thing. So you can have many followers and no engagement at all, or few followers, but you are someone that is engaging everyone to the things, and that's a difference. And then if you are creating content, for example, either in YouTube or especially for esports and gaming in general, a lot of things are happening live in Twitch, then you really need to know the numbers behind your live streaming. And I know that there's, at least when it comes about competitions and so on, there's still a lot of talking on which is the number we should take in consideration and why. And at least I know in Spain there was, the last month, a couple of talks between different people from the business trying to, okay, let's decide what are we gonna take in consideration, because that's something we might use in the future, and it's something that will help us also, like what we pay attention to, and we can compare products based on that, and we can then talk to the brands based on that. So there's this conversation open. So I guess that's a very good initiative that will help somehow, at least for now in Spain, to have better KPIs, better numbers, and help the brands to know where to invest their money and why.
Great. John, which technology will you develop to sort out this challenge? Let's imagine you have unlimited resources now, you have 1 million programmers, and you can decide whatever. So how that technology will look like?
Boy, what would that technology look like? That technology might look like, a training platform for activation people for esports teams. The reason why I say that is that I think a lot of times these dollars are coming into the space and they are not maximized, simply because of, like I was saying at the beginning of this, a lack of business experience. So, one of my hot takes, you could say, I was at the LCS Spring Finals in Houston, Texas yesterday, and I was hanging out with my friends at Evil Geniuses, who actually won the championship. Was amazing to watch. And one of the things we're talking about is, I think one of the best moves for an esports team is to take a top person from a traditional sports team who has years and years activating for brands and bringing them into your esports org as with a leadership position. And what that's going to do is, experience cannot be taught in any other way rather than just experiencing it. There's no shortcut to it. And these people, even if they don't know the esports org structure or those deep nuances everybody else who works for that team does. And so you can partner together and mentor each other and add esports understanding with years and years of activating brands at the highest level, like we see with our favorite football teams. So while that might not be a sexy technological answer, I do think the biggest impact would be training employees effectively to maximize the dollars of sponsors coming into the space.
Anna Amor, what do you think about that? Do you have different ideas?
No. I was happy to hear that, because basically it's what we do in SquareFox. Actually, we have a business training program that is for marketing or specialized in marketing. And the reason for that to exist is exactly what John said. You cannot teach anyone, or you cannot give anyone the experience. And the only way is that you get people that has a lot of experience in another field and moves into esports. And we're learning that, because we, in our training, the first one we had starting last year, we have people from very big brands that we thought, wow, they have a good position in marketing. I don't know, in Nestlé, in big companies around Europe, and especially Europe, because we started here, no, and they are joining our studies because they want to learn exactly what happens in the industry, so they can move their experience into that, and then maybe try applying one of the positions that there might be around the world in the esports ecosystem. So that's pretty cool.
I saw your head doing like this, which means yes, here in Berlin and also in India. I'm also, please tell me, what are you agreeing with?
Well, I would like to bring another aspect of the esports that would like to discuss here, because as I see the esports, it is mainly with the experience that we are talking about, the virtual experience and the virtual tour that we have throughout the gaming thing. So when I talk about esports, there is one digital sports, that is the sports that we play digitally, and we usually call it esports. But there is another component attached to it, that the technology which is developed to develop these games and bring that experience to the person or the gamer can actually have various applications into the other industry. And here is where what I feel is the latest technology can be a game changer with the application of esports developed technology into other aspects. For example, I'll give you a small thing. If you can apply the thing into education, if I say like a cartoon or something to teach, at least that has improvised the learning process. And in COVID, we have seen that a lot of changes have been happening together and still being explored. That the component of or the technology of esports was applied to learning or devise new learning methods for the students of at different age groups, and that was in animation way. The other aspect would be the metaverse, which is created for esports, basically has become a boom, and it has explored. I mean, it is opening new avenues for everyone. For example, if I talk from marketing perspective, you can actually have somebody, some brand, something popping up into the metaverse itself, and that can itself have a monetization value apart from the experience. We talked about the game part of it, but I'm talking about the business and the other side of it. That is, it can be explored for the brand positioning and brand marketing part of it. And there are different metaverse which are available, and we are seeing that the esports company which have popular games and have created their own metaverse are now having the sites for branding and all those things. And in virtual world, we are just opening new opportunities for showcasing brand position, brand strength, and association with different fan following and all. And obviously, when I talk about fan following and fan experience, and in all these esports, then the topic doesn't complete without talking about the NFT and blockchain, which are the super hot topics these days. And obviously, very important in terms of monetization aspect. So the fans and the esports team, when they have this NFT tokens generated, and those can have some monetization value and some added value to the person who is following that sport. I think that opens up altogether a new way of looking at the things, and obviously the technology is evolving, and even I'm interested and curious to know what's lying next, what we can see next from all these things.
Amol, you should mention the word blockchain, which is also a buzzword today and is everywhere. For the three of you, do you think that the blockchain technologies can help to certify these technologies that can make audience measurement more efficiently? This is maybe the path to certify such numbers. What do you think about it?
Well, my understanding about blockchain is quite limited at the moment, so I would not prefer to comment on the moment, but I feel yes, it can be, because we are seeing that the certifications are already being validated on blockchain. Like, many universities are coming up, and even in India, I'm seeing some projects that are being taken, some of the government projects that are being taken, where the final degree programs and the certifications are coming on blockchain. And if that's possible, maybe this also can be explored and maybe possible, if not now, but in near future, yes. But I would love to hear it from John and Anna, their views on it.
Yeah, I probably have the same level of expertise on blockchain as Amel does. So I don't want to position myself as an expert there. I do think, obviously, as you see, NFTs are growing. There's a lot of skepticism from gamers with NFTs, but that's obviously tied to blockchain. There's opportunities there if it's done the right way. What I would say, what I think would be more effective, another technology that I would invent, is pulling data from Twitch and publishers and console manufacturers to become available for everybody else. It's a little bit silly that procuring data and reporting back data is such a challenge in a purely digital ecosystem, right? That's the thing about digital, is everything can be tracked, but the data on their own platforms are tentative to share it with other people. And it's not criticism of them. It makes sense that anybody who has their own data would want to hold on to that for a number of reasons. But I think more effective than blockchain would be the accessibility of data to then be able to understand what those dollars are doing and make informed decisions.
How do you promote that in the Esports Trade Association from the US? Do you have any policy, program, or recommendation for the brands and the publishers and other stakeholders?
Yeah, so we do that on a number of fronts. So we have actually a conference August 21st through 23rd in Chicago. It is also a hybrid event, so it can be viewed virtually as well. We talk about partner. We talk about monetization. We talk about gaming for everyone. How can we include underrepresented groups in this? And one that we are trailblazing is betting in esports, which is something that requires a lot of regulation and a lot of very deep nuances. We have a gentleman named Anthony God who is leading that effort for us. And so very soon we will be having white papers and studies on this other form of monetization, which is betting in esports in a way that is safe and appropriate for the community.
You mentioned, John, how we can include, let's say, certain groups of people more into gaming. And we have Anna. Anna, you are the first woman in the round table, of course. And on the other round table, we didn't have anyone else. So probably we are all curious how we can engage more women inside the industry. Because, of course, we have more women than men in the world. But when you look at the world of gaming, I think they are completely underrepresented. Last time I saw the numbers, we are talking maybe 70 to 30% on the spectator side. And when you come to gamers, probably is even lower. What is your view on that, and how we can work to make this esports industry more equal in terms of gender?
That's a huge topic. Okay, if you look at the gaming industry in general, you will see like half of women and men playing video games, just in general, like from Candy Crush to Valorant, going through any kind of game. When you go into professional esports, like professional players, then it really goes down the number of players, female players that really want to compete or know how to compete or find it appealing or think this is something for them. And if you look at the industry itself, it's true that you probably get to see a lot of women, but not on the front. They are usually taking different roles that are not so visible, although that is, I think, changing and growing, and we are working on that. But it's true, when I go to any kind of meeting, conversation, roundtable, when I have to meet a lot of VPs from different companies, it's very hard to find other women that you can talk to and feel that you are like, yeah, we are at the same level, all of us, and it's not true that we are less than. No, it's obvious. It's something that happens very often. Actually, a couple of years ago, I went to Brussels there was trying to happen an European federation, and I think I was the only one on the picture. There were like 45 male from different countries trying to fight for esports, and it seemed that everything was going to be cool because there was this hope to regulate a little bit esports in a way that was so difficult. Nothing happened after that, as far as I know. But once we were all there, we realized, wow, maybe there are even more problems than just finding a regulation before we get there, and that was obvious with the picture. But I think the only way it's through education, like that. This is something outside from esports. It's not, the problem is not from the industry itself. It comes from the humanity, I'd say. We still need to learn how to make things work. And if women, like little girls, have someone in front of them that is an astronaut, they might dream on being an astronaut. And if they have in front of them players, they will dream on being at some point a player. But we are still not there. I know esports could help a lot, and I think there are a lot of initiatives from ESL, from Riot, Game Changers, and ESL Impact and GG for all these kind of things might help get more women play, compete, and feel safe doing that.
Thanks, Anna. Let me remind the audience that you can participate in the YouTube channel, posting your questions. And adding on the topic that you discussed, Anna, personally in the company I'm working at, Adesso, is a German company. We are promoting Women on IT. It's a specific program, not only for esports, but for women who wants to approach a career inside technology. It can be as a programmer, it can be as a project manager, it can be as a strategic consultant for different line of businesses and platforms. Available for engaging them from very early stage. And maybe, Amol, you can tell us more about that in the country that probably has more programmers in the world, which is India, your country.
Sorry, I didn't get you. Can you repeat?
Yes, can you tell us more how women are engaging with programming and technology in the country which is promoting more programmers in the world, which is yours, the India?
Absolutely. So we are seeing rising trends these days, and even in the university itself, we are seeing that women are taking up more technological courses to learn more programming these days, and there is an open trend. Obviously, India is a vast country with a diverse socio-cultural thing, and that has always been a challenge in the women participation. But thanks to the initiatives taken by the government in promoting women empowerment these days, we are seeing a quite rise in terms of overall. I mean, not talking only on esports, but overall the women are there's a rising uptrend when it comes to the women participating, and the same thing is being reflected in terms of the real sports out there, and also on the federations and on their governing body itself. So nowadays we are seeing in India, women are taking up that leadership role, which was not there if I talk about 10 or 15 years before. And it's interesting to say that government is encouraging that at least 33% of the women should be there on the governing bodies of these sporting federations, and that's, I think, a welcome move. We might see some good numbers coming up, and that would actually lead and to the thing that we actually mean at the gender equality, and in the next few years we might see more number of women being there.
Thank you. This is the last question of the panel, roundtable 2. We are addressing to the end. I want to thank everyone who is participating and giving us their time. And to close by, I would like to ask you what are the most interesting trends on 2022 on effective return of the investment in esports sponsoring. What would you say is the holy grail of esports sponsoring for this year after, let's say, that the COVID rules are finally coming more easier everywhere? So we are having events again, we are having probably more live that as we knew it before, or do you think that maybe the changes that the COVID introduces have modified the scene forever? So the question is, what is the most interesting trend that we should look after this year when it comes to return of investment in esports sponsor? Let me start with John, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I think as we see two things emerging this year. We see the metaverse growing in adoption and capability, and we also see live events coming back. And so I see the greatest opportunity is to enhance experiences, both physically at live events, coordinated with digitally in the metaverse. Whenever I talk to a brand, I share with them the experience of the community has to be better than before your brand was a part of it. So like I shared, this last weekend, I was in Houston for the LCS Spring Finals, and I saw a lot of brands activating there. I'm not going to call anybody out, of course, but I saw some that were very good, and I saw some that seemed not to be enhancing and adding meaningful value to the community in attendance. It's also important to understand that young people view their identities digitally and their worlds digitally in the way that older generations saw value only in physical things. So if you have the opportunity to activate live with a team, an event, a content creator, look a little deeper and say, how can I support and extend this activation digitally in-game or in the metaverse?
Thank you, John. Who launches the next shot?
I can do it. Oh, yeah, it was quicker. I'm all. Well, I think in 2022, basically what we are gonna see, and it's for sure happening, is not only events, because we are back to events, and that's something everyone was expecting to happen, even from very small events, like at least in Spain, when you open your doors for a watch party, you move everyone there because everyone has like this wish to celebrate esports together. And this is gonna be like one of the main things in this year, but also content. I don't know exactly in every country if it's happening on the same measure, but in Spain, content is kind of the king. Anything that is made through Twitch and is content for the audience, and even more content, and every day something new, and all the content creators are kind of creating all these series to work together, play together, do events online. It's a non-stop amount of content that right now is what every brand in Spain is looking for. Like, how can I be there doing something? I don't know. I don't care. Just put me there. I want to be part of this content. And that's something that for sure is happening this year. And in the future, near future, I guess, this whole metaverse thing that in my head is still looking like the Second Life, which I didn't like too much, but I think it's going to turn into something much cooler, and we might all get hooked with metaverse. And I also think, and now I need to talk a little bit about the Squarebox again, we need these educational or training programs happening for the best of the industry. And for sure, new ways of how to monetize esports are needed for organizations. They need to, besides the sponsorship, which is for sure over the 50% of the revenue, should be more. I've seen in the Newzoo report that they were speaking about loyalty programs and other kind of ways. I guess it's the way, and it's needed for many of these organizations, merchandise and all that stuff that they can do with their own brands.
Thanks, Anna. Amol, very quickly.
Yeah. Moving from the metaverse thing, I think that yes, connecting the physical sports and into the metaverse and digital would be an upcoming trend, but I also feel that the local sports or the sports in which is more popular to that country should also find its way to the metaverse and into the esports thing. For example, if I talk about in Indian market or maybe in South Asian market, if I say cricket and football are two important sports, but if we talk about there are few more sports which are more indigenous, which are not played across the globe, but at least more localized. Like in India, if you talk about it's kabaddi, and there is a professional league of that coming up. So if such sports can find its way to the metaverse or can find its way to developing the esports game, I think that can become the game changer in both terms of participation, engagement, and then monetization part of it. Obviously, the another aspect of it can be explored for generating the sponsorship and revenue generation, that is influencing the influencer marketing. And we have seen the trend that the MPL Sports, which is a merchandise brand of MPL, that is Mobile Premier League in India, is the official kit sponsor for BCCI Team India, that is a cricket team of India. And I saw some interview where the CEO was saying that we see to connect with a lot of fans that cricket has in India, because in India, cricket is like a big game. It's like a culture, and the MPL is trying to connect the fans of cricket through this particular strategic sponsorship. So similar things can come up, and I think that can add more value to the existing things. That's it from my end.
And that's the conclusion of the roundtable of our three experts, the second one today in the eSports Data Club. Thanks, Amol Patil, Dr. Amol Patil from the Global Sports Innovation Hub. Thank you, Ana Oliveras David, also known as Anouk, your professional eSports nickname, CEO of Squarebox. And thank you, John Davidson from Texas, from the Davidson Learning Company and the eSports Trade Association, for sure. Very insightful conclusions for our audience today. We are very grateful for your time. And I think, Marie, it was a great panel to discuss also about equality and how women can get more into the technology, the technological ecosystem. I think that's something Catalonia has been fighting for a long time, right? About equality in all aspects of society.
Yes, actually, and from a completely different field, there is a traditional figure of woman leadership in Catalan culture, which is la pubilla. It was the person, the woman, in case there was not a male successor of leading the home. So the woman would take over the leadership of the home. And I think it's interesting to take over this type of figure from the tradition, from the history, from Catalonia, and put it into the new times, into esports, for example.
And personally, I think you're a good example for those girls looking forward to represent Catalonia abroad. You are a woman figure abroad. How do you feel about that? How you made your path about this? I mean, did you feel there was a change in this in your industry, which is not the esports industry, it's different, but do you think there was a change in the last few years to make more space for women?
Yes, of course, and it's not only in Catalonia, it's also in Germany. Women have been struggling for being part of the political system, and I think there's still a lot of things to do even for the next generation. And me personally, I understood at some point that it's not so much about me, but because of course there are times where you struggle and you feel like despaired and tired and sad and anxious, but then I thought, no, that's not about me, it's about the change I can bring, and that's why I try to give a good example. Mm-hmm.
And that's about change, and change is what is coming next at 5 p.m. Berlin time, 4 p.m. London, and you need to convert to the time zone where you are following this event with the third roundtable of experts. It's going to be discussed tracking technologies for audience engagement, how we can contribute with new ecosystems of data, with new technologies, with new ways of measuring success of brands in the sponsoring inside the esports industry, what we need to do from a technical perspective. So our experts are going to discuss that. I thank you for being in there. We are going to take a short break of 10 minutes and we are back here 5 o'clock Berlin time. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Hi everyone and welcome back to the Esports Data Club, a hybrid seminar from Berlin. For all those following us online, thank you very much for joining today the different roundtables and keynotes around the esports industry. Thank you again, Marie, for hosting us here in the Catalan government headquarters in Germany, in Berlin. We are near the city center. And for the third roundtable, I would like to introduce our panel of experts. We are going to discuss about the tracking methodologies for getting more accurate data in the esports industry. Those are Rafael Monroy. He's a data expert from the company TrackUp. TrackUp is a famous tracking company in the sports industry around football players in the pitch and many other technologies surrounding it. Rafael is originally from Mexico. We have also Marc Ricard. Marc is connecting us from Barcelona. He works at Adesso, one of the leading IT companies in Europe with more than 6,000 employees. And finally, we have Maxim Motim. He is originally from Russia, but connects with us from Lviv in Ukraine, where he is living in the past few years. He is the Chief Marketing Officer of the FC Ru, which is a football team from Ukraine. So thanks everyone for joining the panel, and particularly thank you, Maxim, for connecting with us from Ukraine. I know that's a challenge on nowadays. To introduce this roundtable number 3 about tracking technologies, there are approximately 2.2 billion gamers in the world. So that's more than 25% of the global population. That means that we need efficient measuring technologies to overcome the challenge to understand what they are doing. So how technology can get a picture of those gamers online. Let me start then with Marc. Marc, you worked with technological solutions for more than 2 decades. With the high level of digitalization, how is it possible that we are still discussing this topic today? I mean, we are talking a digital industry with digital technologies, and we still don't know what most of the gamers are doing. What is your view on that, Marc?
Thank you for the opportunity of being here. It's great. Okay, to know a little bit of this, let's talk about history of video games a little bit. I'll be fast. Don't worry about it. Let's say 2005, more or less. Okay, online play becomes a thing in the video game industry. Like World of Warcraft, it's a face game, but then we're talking about Steam, we're talking about PlayStation, we're talking about Xbox platforms that they started with online play with their player base. Now, from 2005 to 2010, more or less, the purists of video game will kill me probably for this, but I'm just grabbing some groups of years. The publishers will try to avoid piracy first. Then we're talking about DLC, DRM, microtransactions. There was a big controversy, etc. Then 2010, 2015. Publishers realized that they don't know their player base. Platforms do, but they don't. And they realize that data collection is something very important. It's who the players are, what the systems they play in, when do they play, how they play. So with the help of partners, companies like Adesso, work with CRMs, data collection systems, they create their own platforms for players to register in-game. So publishers, they do their job, let's say, at least the B2C part of the job, right? So with the information that this was important for them. And then we go from 2015 to 2020, we're talking about ongoing games, software as a service if you want it, subscription-based games or free-to-play games with accepted microtransactions, like the PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds, Fortnite, etc. And from there, we got the popularization of esports and what advertisers, let's call it this way, the interest of advertisers. So we are in this, for example, like Jaume Roures, which is the president of Media Pro, the CEO, he said that there's no business to be made, only publishers make money, right? So it is true because publishers did their job, at least the B2C part. So they did the data collection, they did the ROI. Now they're getting money out of this. But the advertisers were the ones who are trying to get into the sports right now. They haven't. And it's a different media, and it's a different audience, different target. So to answer the question, right, in a sentence or so, it is possible to still talking about this in 2022, because for publishers, the B2B area of this business was not a priority until now. And for advertisers, it is a new uncharted territory. And I think that one of the next priorities of the publishers will be to lead the transformation of the video game industry to include the B2B model. They will have to include ads in video games without alienating the player base, which is something that we haven't done yet, and create a marketplace sort of platform with the partners to integrate the advertisers. And I think that, well, the first company who does that will realize that there's a lot of money to be made.
Thank you, Mark. I will continue with you, Rafael. Very welcome to the panel. I think Mark mentioned that publishers need to do that, but you are working in a sphere, the sports, where that already happened, and you helped many federations and competitions to track their data. Of course, you are doing that maybe on the performance analytics side, which is the measurement of the players on the pitch, but which technologies make you learn how to track more efficiently, and how we can take that experience into audience measurement in an accurate way that the sponsor can feel more confident about the esports industry?
Yeah, correct. Thank you very much, Federico, and thank you everyone for being here and for the invitation. That's very interesting, because as Mark says, until now, many companies have focused only in the traditional sports and track up the company I work for. Now we are trying to give a step in that direction. That is, we are starting to not only track players on the field, on a real pitch, let's say, on the grass, but also we are starting to track from video sources. That means that the possibilities are open to many things, from covering low-tier leagues in the world, to even track any game. What we are trying to do this is, in track up as many companies, sometimes we provide the methods and the systems to collect the data, but then it's up to the market or the other companies in the B2B model to explode the data we produce to actually produce different things. We have made different business cases with different clients doing amazing things with our data, and sometimes it's on our role in the industry is to try to collect the data very accurately with very low latency. We are the leader on that. We deliver data at less than 300 milliseconds. That is really, really low. And I think that from there, the market is open to see what we can do and how they can apply the features we can provide to a market like the esports. So yeah, really interesting to see what we can provide for this sector in the near to mid-term future.
Thank you, Rafa. If you can check your microphone, sometimes it's making some electricity for the next round of questions. If you can check the connection would be great, so we can hear you much more better. And finally, Maxim is connecting with us from Lviv in Ukraine. Thank you so much, Maxim, for your time. And I would like to ask you, as a chief marketing officer and experience manager in different sports areas, but also a person with a big heart for gaming and innovation, where are the black holes of the esports industry when it comes to sponsoring measurement? Which tracking technologies are you missing as an expert in marketing?
Oh, my experience, it's most of all, it's traditional sports, yes, not esport. And I think, for my opinion, so a lot of people who have money in normal sport, in traditional sport, they don't understand still what does it mean esport. So they're not from our generation. They're under 50, around 60 years old, and it's, I don't know, it's very rich guys from Saudi Arabia or from, I don't know, other countries. And they don't understand why young people play games and watch streams, etc., etc., etc. So I think that the new generation, after 5-10 years old, they will understand what does it mean esport, and they will use these different games with useful. So as I see the problem, so the traditional sports, it's what all parents want to see with their child. So they want to, he can play football or hockey or running or walking, and not so many parents want to see their child near the computer or near the mobile game. So very important to explain that if you, okay, let's go to play Counter-Strike or another games, but very important to be a normal person, to walking, running, play normal sports. And so, for my opinion, the esports and the guys from this industry, they should be more sportsmen. They should explain that, okay, guys, play, but not only near the computer, play in normal life too. And so what about the advertisements and about the brands? They have this, for example, in Ukraine, I talked with them a few times, and I will explain, I will offer them to have any symbiosis. Traditional sport and esports, for example, FIFA, because I'm working football. I'm working in a football club, so I offer them compare FIFA and the normal football. They don't want to do it because they don't want to mix their budgets. They don't mix the audience right now with the esport and traditional sport. They're afraid that it's two different audience and they don't understand each other. So I think that it's. We should to be more, not a fight, not organize a fight between sport and esports. We should to find any, I don't know, friendly relationships to each other and to help each other. Because I'm sure about it that traditional sport will be more and more digitalized and, I don't know, with element of esports. Because it's not so interesting right now to watch 90 minutes football game. It's very boring. And so, for example, if you sit in the stadium and you can, I don't know, play in your mobile phone and I don't know how it will be, but you can choose, for example, who will be the next player, who will, what the coach should to do, for example, and you will choose on your mobile phone like a game. It will be any combination with traditional sport and esport. It will be nice. Mm-hmm. So, but right now, I think we have a very, very, very big gap, about 5 or 10 years between the guys who take any decision, because the guys with money, they don't play in esports before.
Thank you. Thanks you three for the introduction to the roundtable. Let me go with you, Rafael. You are a former journalist from different media across the globe, and we are discussing about transparency. And there is always a discussion who is selling more newspapers in the past, right? So some associations have been created to measure that and to measure later on the TV ratings and the radio ratings and so on and so on. And different countries have different approaches. From your experience as a former journalist and now an expert in technology for tracking in sports, how esports can take advantage of these past experiences in other industries to make more transparent the current level of engagements?
Well, I think that esports, as any other emerging industry, needs to take some steps in, as you say, avoid avoid having non-transparent practices. And one of these is, of course, we have, of course, the technology to know how many people or how many audience is watching a game. And you can say, for example, yeah, but how, if someone wants to bid this, they can always argue that it's a bot. Yes, it is, but at the same time, I think that with the solutions in the market today, we have the elements and the technology to virtually certificate that actual attendees to our esports game are really watching the game. So I think it's, as you say, more like transparency practice that should be put in place more than a technological issue. So I think that in this sense, the esports industry is, I mean, in the right moment with the technology being able to provide things that maybe for traditional sports were more difficult because there were nothing at that time. So I think that it's just a matter of putting in place the practices to do that, because technologically, I think that everything is really solved.
Mark, do you agree with that? It's more a question of willingness than a question of technological availability. Do you trust the figures out there, or some of them you think are a bot generated figure or someone imagination? You're on mute, Mark.
Sorry. I wouldn't necessarily agree completely. I think it's both. Everything is important in the end, right? Trusting, I would say data is too small. It's not shared enough to be completely trustful. And I think it's one of the steps, or the next steps, that publishers will have to lead with partners. The fact of sharing this data with the advertisers, and it requires a great technology level, because right now the only way of getting veracity is like cross-referencing, like big data, getting two large data sets from the publisher and the advertisement, and then putting them together, and then it becomes like a big mess, which is the big data, right? And it's very very costly for the advertisers to measure for each different publisher the return of investment, the data tracking of their possible customers.
Yeah, exactly. I agree, Mark. And I think that, I mean, as you said, that I was speaking about the availability of the technology that is there, but you are right when you say that maybe it's more expensive to implement all this. And that's maybe one of the challenges that I'm speaking about the previous roundtable about sponsoring. If there's a technology and it's a term of cost, when maybe there's on other side to see who can provide the money to sponsor what the esports need in order to be more successful.
Maxim, what is the most interesting trend for digital tracking in the next 5 years? What do you think is going to make the huge difference when you as a marketer decide where to invest your money?
Oh, a lot of people talking about VR. Of course, we're talking about VR more than 10 years. But if someone will find a solution how to make this technology more cheaper, and how to, I don't know, how to make it cost about $5-10 for glasses. And if somebody finds a solution, of course, it will be a very, very big push. So I think VR and all kind of programs who will help people be more fan engagement on the stadium. So I think something in this solution it should be. So compare traditional sport and esport. If somebody finds solution how to compare it, this will be more interesting.
Mark, is the blockchain maybe the buzzword that can make a difference here? Is a technology that can differentiate what is a trusted number from an untrusted one, or blockchain is just adding one more layer of complexity in something that should be more simple?
No, I don't think it's. I don't think it's adding more complexity. It's adding more security. It's true. Let me say, first of all, I agree with Maxime that one of the trends is loyalty programs, VIP, mix online and offline. Talking about a blockchain, the problem of blockchain, I think, is that it's still an unknown or mostly unknown technology. We talk about blockchain, and but there's very few people that really know how it deeply works and the opportunities that we can say. It obviously, I mean, the way it's validated, the way it's secured, the way that it cannot be replicated because you have to, fool too many people or it's always, you can always do things, right? But of course, it adds the security maybe that it's necessary.
I'm agree about blockchain.
Yeah.
It's not necessary for sports. It's not necessary for esports. And we know the most popular project is Chile's. Maybe you know about this. It's Chile's token. A lot of football clubs, more than 20 football clubs. They have Inter and somewhere else, Barcelona, I think, they have their tokens. But to be honest, it's nothing. So, okay, you can choose what song will play during the halftime. Come on, you buy tokens and you choose the song. You can make a vote on Telegram group, for example, with the same success. So blockchain is not necessary for sports, I think, in my opinion.
Maybe not for a sport, but maybe for a technology that can track what the player is doing, not the player inside the pitch. I mean, the viewer or the player using it, and we want to measure which games are they using. Do you, Maxim, think it's just adding complexity and we should have another way of tracking them?
I think we have a lot of CRM system, very different, and it's more than enough for sports.
So when you, as a chief marketing officer of this football club in Ukraine, you receive a figure from someone asking your attention, you deeply trust on it based on the personal relationship, and you don't need a second, let's say, tool to measure or to check it that the number they are reporting is true. Is that your view on how the industry should go, or I'm understanding you wrongly?
No, for my opinion, of course, we need a lot of instruments, and we try to use it. But for example, in Ukraine, in our situation, most of them are very expensive. And so a lot of clubs, if we don't talk about Manchester City, Barcelona, etc., so we couldn't pay more than $20,000-$25,000 for CRM system. So $25,000-$30,000, it's a big amount for us for CRM system. So for us and for a lot of other clubs like it's all this very, very, very modern technology. It's not, I don't know, we don't have money for them.
Right. So I see a raised hand from Mark. Maybe, Mark, you want to add something on this? Because $25,000 in football might be too much, but in gaming, it's not that much.
No, I was saying that I understand the position of Maxime in this. It is true that the actors now in the sports, they have all this data in their heads, right? They've grown watching football this way, learning football. Let's talk about football. We can talk about any other sport. They've grown this way, and they might not see the importance of this data collection because they have all these things. And what they experience right now is just that, if a player runs a lot or enough, the trainer says, okay, it's enough. The data that they can expect from this is he ran 1.7 kilometers, and for them, you can translate that 1.7 kilometers is enough. Okay, fine. And they don't see the use of this. What we partners have to do in this case, I think it is to help the clubs, and in this case, and well, let's and also translate it to esports on putting order in this data, and that's big data, and that's where the partners, in our case, that where we wait in between these two worlds.
So Mark, when you say order is a new form of governance that can regulate the esports data, making it more accessible to third parties?
I don't have the crystal ball, but it is true that yes, we need easier accessible data.
Rafa, do you agree on that?
Of course. I mean, I work for a company. We make money collecting and selling the data, but at the same time, we are aware that not all the data, or not all the types of data are for all the audiences. I mean, it's not the same sending the data to FIFA than to a small club in, for example, in Mexico, the country I come from. So I think that what companies should do, and actually TruckApp is doing an effort to do that, is to produce data on a cheaper way to make it more democratic and more accessible for more leagues or clubs or competitions or even sports that don't have the economical support of football, soccer, let's say.
And how do you produce more cheaper data? I'm curious about that. Is it a technological process?
Yes, one of the things we are working on is we are starting some tests to track data from video sources. So, for example, instead of sending an expensive equipment of 16 cameras to a venue, having people installing the cable, etc., having operators in the venue, we are reducing our footprint in the venues. First of all, we are starting to not having operators in the venue for all Bundesliga games. We are operating remotely with AI systems. The next step will be to start producing tracking data from broadcast video. I mean, we are starting to do some successful tests with tracking data from the TV images instead of having cameras in the venue. That, of course, reduces a lot the cost of the production. And of course, that way we can offer a product that is less expensive than the original one. So those are more or less the steps we are giving towards the democratization, let's say, of the data.
When it comes to democratization, it sounds to me, and it was on one of the previous roundtables, that there is a demand for more open data. But you also mentioned, Rafael, that your company is making money about collecting data and selling it. So how different stakeholders are sensitive to open their door and share data maybe with non-commercial interest from the beginning? Is that a question for the three of you? Who is taking the hand?
Yeah, of course. I mean, of course, coming from a private company, a private owned company, our aim will be always to make business, but also being fair. We know that a small club cannot pay the money that Real Madrid can pay, and they don't mind if you produce data providing their different products. I mean, if you want a car, you want a Mercedes-Benz or you want a cheap one, the one buying the expensive one wouldn't care if you buy the less expensive one, because it's just a different purpose and need a different league, a different context. So I think that making this available in different ranges is a good solution for many clubs that today cannot afford the only solution that we have, because the only solution we have is expensive.
Maxim, do you think, one second, Mark. Maxim, do you think that adding on what Rafael said, federations and clubs should put on the contracts with data companies that the information should be more shared between stakeholders and available to generate new forms of businesses and opportunities?
We already have it. For example, many years I worked with this company Instat. It's one of the leader in football statistics, and I know those guys very well because they're from Russia, from Moscow, and Alexander Ivansky, CEO of this company, he first club with whom he worked 15 or 16 years ago, it was our club. And so 16 years ago, he's from IT himself, and he decided to have this football statistics. And I remember how it's beginning. It was 8 cameras and 8 people who manually check each player from point A to point B, from point B to point C. And during few years, he tried to automate it. And now it's one of the biggest company in the world with more than 20,000 clubs and federations. And so right now, if you have a subscription in Instat, you have access for all stats from all clubs in the world. And so right now, it's what we have right now. And for example, media, they have the special subscription too, and they can see all information about all clubs in their leagues, for example.
Mark, you want to add on top of that?
Yeah, I wanted to say, adding also what Rafael said, there is data you can share and data you can't, obviously. The problem is that the data holders don't know the difference most of the times. They know some, but they're collecting sometimes even too much data, right? That's where the partners, I was talking about the partners at ESO, for example, they help them differentiate this data. So in the fact of sharing data, it would be, so you can share more data, make more data public, and still keep the important data that you need, and it's confidential for your company. In this case, let's talk about clubs and as companies for yourself.
I think it's most important now, not information, because it's really huge, massive of information, how you work with this information. And so, for example, American football, yes, there are all information, and as I know, all information is open in US, because everything you can find. But you have a lot of coaches who work with this information. The same in football. So it's not very difficult to understand who, I don't know, who is better running, who is faster, who make more passes, and who work with, etc., etc., etc. But most important, how you will work with this information and how you will explain to your football player, for example, what to do in the next game, if you know this information. So I'm not sure that we have right now any security information. I'm not sure about it.
Who for the three of you, who do you think is doing this right? Which federation, which esports, which gaming industry stakeholder is playing the right bet in terms of data management, distribution, openness, and creating opportunities for others? Do you have any business reference case that you would like to share to the audience?
Me no.
Yeah, it's difficult because, of course, when you have a contract in place with a federation or with a league, for example, there are some terms that protect the data of being open. So that's basically the main issue. And it depends from client to client. I have clients who have decided to share all the data between all the clubs in the same competition. So all of them are in the same, I mean, all of them have the same opportunities of taking advantage of the data. Some other competitions, some other leagues have decided that only their own data can be seen from the API. So the clubs only have access to their own data. So it really depends very much on who pays to the company who collects the data.
Who plays the music, say, is the same. So Mark, do you agree with that?
Well, yeah, obviously in some of it, yes. No, I just wanted to say, for me, NBA is doing a good job sharing data and accessing data, for example. And I think in the football area, It's a wild guess. I don't know. I don't remember which one of the two, but I think it's FIFA who's going to create a standard document. I don't know if it's FIFA or UEFA. Sorry, I don't know right now. They are creating a standard for data sharing and for the clubs to work with. So I think that is also a very interesting step towards.
Right, but then you mentioned two cases. You mentioned NBA and FIFA, which are governance umbrellas in two of the major, let's say, sports industry games out there. But when we go to esports, there is no umbrella. That's the feeling for many brands. So what do we do? What is the solution from your perspective?
Well, again, esports is a very new trend. It's probably like not so long ago there were no federations of esports. There was nothing. It was everything is very chaotic. I think that it needs time to order and put together, and probably in the end that's what's going to happen, and there's going to be a government institution that's going to create rules or something. But the real problem here, it's a little bit different. It's like the holders of the information, and that's what Rafael Monroy was saying, who pays, dictates, right, are the publishers of the video games. Let's not forget they are private entities who hold the IPs, and you cannot do anything.
This is completely clear, but then that means the industry should quit to get more data because this is in hands of private companies like the publishers, or there is some way, or should be some way, that this ecosystem should be created maybe between the publishers. What do you think is more likely? We all agree it's a new industry and so on, but let me remind everyone on the table, the first time eSports World was mentioned is 1998. So it's not so new anymore. So let's say this. What is the path to make this more efficient? How do you imagine that this ecosystem can be created?
I think that this is going to be possible when publishers realize that there's a B2B option here, and it's feasible to do this, for example.
Maxim, Rafael?
I think that in terms of the governance and how things will be in the next, let's say, decade, 5-10 years maybe, I think that it's really interesting the moment in which esports are right now. And one of the things that maybe the people around this should take note is that providing an ecosystem that is independent, so you can share the data, etc., is really nice, but it requires a lot of effort, not only of putting in place, but maintaining the databases, etc. And that's the reason why I think in the traditional sports, all this has been outsourced to companies like TrackUp, Opta, StatsPerform, because it is really expensive, even for big federations like UEFA or CONMEBOL or FIFA for the government body that is FIFA. Even for them, it's really expensive and sometimes complicated to own and maintain and collect all the data. So the traditional sports market found a solution in outsourcing all this, and that's why companies like TrackUp, where I work at, exist, because we have really specialized in a niche market of collecting tracking data, and sometimes this is something difficult to achieve for. So
maybe outsourcing is the answer from your end, Rafael. You think that eSports industry stakeholders like publishers and so on, and eSports,
my point is that traditional sports found the solution there. Maybe esports will find a different solution, but they can learn from there and say, okay, we can do the same way that the traditional sports followed, or we can do it in a different way. I mean, I think that and that's exactly why I said that this is a really interesting moment in esports, because this is a moment where they can decide what to do. And I think that it's really interesting to see what will happen in the future.
Great. So we are arriving to the end of the panel. I want to remind all the audience that they can post your questions in the chat box in the right side of the screen. If you are looking at the event on the YouTube channel, if you are on esportsdata.club, please, you need to click before on the logo of YouTube to access that chat box. Otherwise, you can remain, of course, connected to the stream. And I would like to maybe ask Maxim, we lose track of, reality of video games, because it's a world where people normally try to escape to the metaverse, to the digital new world, to their imagination. But I would like to ask you how the current conflict in Ukraine is affecting the esports industry. What is your view? Because before the conflict, Ukraine was one of the leading markets in the region as of Russia. So having your insights as a Russian living in Ukraine, I think they are very insightful for the panel. And thank you again for connecting from Lviv today.
Oh, to be honest, it's difficult to predict something because this war just starting and nobody know what. Of course, we will win, but we don't know when. So I know that Mincast, as I'm right, it's the biggest, one of the biggest video production in Eastern Europe, maybe not only in Eastern Europe. So Maincast. And as I know, they're working, and I know that a lot of IT companies, they move their stuff to Europe. And so I'm not sure that esport industry with the IT guys, so video production, etc. I'm sure that it will be okay, but of course right now nobody play, all of us volunteers fighting or some fight trying to find I don't know any useful things for our army, so I'm not sure that somebody play games right now, so it's awful situation, and I'm hoping that war will finish as soon as possible, and I'm thinking, I want to answer for your previous question, what will be in the future with the data. So all of us, we have mobile phones, smartphones, and I think that all data will be useful for normal supporters. So you will sit on the stadium and you just switch off your camera and you will see all stats in real life. So, for example, these stats will predict. So if Cristiano Ronaldo will shoot right now, he will score with, I don't know, 0.5%. If he will give the pass, it will be 1%, and it will be the goal for, I don't know, after that. So the stats will be like a prediction, like information for betting, because the betting and their money, it's, I don't know how in your country, but in Ukraine, the main sponsors, it's a betting company. And so they want to involve people in their business. And so the most easy way to do is use when you sit on the stadium. So when you're involved in the game. And so if you have something like this statistic, or you have such services, it's very easy to say, okay, let's make a bet for $1. If he will shoot right now, he will score or not. You have 2 seconds to do this bet. Yes, no, tin. So I think the betting and the data for betting, it will be the most important for all traditional sport.
Is there any rumor about any event occurring soon in Ukraine? Because all the leagues have been suspended in February. Did you hear anything about it? Do you have any expectation in any region of the country? Because of course the situation is not the same on the east or the west, north or south.
Really, nobody knows what will be tomorrow. I was in a railway station 5 days ago, and the rockets fly 500 meters from me. So really, just nobody have any plans.
We understand, Maxim, and thank you again for your time. Guys, for the last question on this roundtable, anything we are not addressing, anything we are missing about most efficient way to track audiences on esports and to measure sponsorship deals?
Nothing that I can say now, to be honest. I think this is something that in the near future or in the midterm will be something the companies that traditionally have worked with traditional sports will start to look into the esports. And then I think that the focus will be, as you say, to try to provide the solutions that the esports need right now, taking advantage, of course, of all the work that companies have done so far on the pitches. But yeah, to be honest, as Mark said, we don't have the crystal ball to see how the future will be. But what is for sure is that in the esports, as you say, there will be big changes, and hopefully all the ecosystem of industries working in traditional sports will have space to do interesting things on that side, to be really, really eager to see this.
Thanks, Rafael. Mark, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think for me, interactivity is key. Let's put it this way. And for tracking, for performance, for advertisement, for everything, I think for customer engagement, I think esports, the way it's conceived from the beginning, has a lot of potential in this area.
And we are talking about blockchain, but we don't talk about NFT. And I think that NFT, it's a good way for sport to earn money. And right now, I don't know, do you hear about the project Steppen? No, it's NFT. It's a NFT sneakers. So you should to buy NFT sneakers and you're walking. And you have 10 minutes or 20 minutes per day. When you're walking, they earn your tokens. And you can change these tokens to money, to USDT, and etc., etc., etc. So it's one of the most popular projects right now. And this type of projects, when somebody pay you if you do good things, walking, running, or swimming, I don't know. It's a very interesting type of projects. And so right now, this project Steppen is really one of the biggest in this area, and more than 500,000 people already use it. So 500,000 people bought sneakers, NFT sneakers, and do you know how much one sneaker? One NFT? More than $1,000.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's a good number.
More than $1,000 right now. So, and 500,000 people already bought it and walking and receive money. So of course maybe it's I don't know, like a pyramid. Yes, it's I don't know. But right now it's a very, very interesting opportunity for all sports to, I don't know, to collaboration with such project or to start up their own project. So it's interesting to see.
With this conclusion, I want to thank the three experts in the third roundtable today: Rafael Monroy from TrackUp, Marc Ricard from Adesso Spain, and Maxim Motin from FC Ruhr. Thanks so much for your time and your connection from different locations, particularly from you, Maxim, in the difficult situation in Ukraine. And probably we ended up this roundtable, the third one, with a lot of insights how we can incentivize and gamify the experience of the spectator in a different way with this NFT point. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, actually, the whole day we were talking about like upcoming topics, such as for the trustworthiness. Is how can we measure the impact of esports? How can we measure the impact of publicity to gain more sponsorship? And that all connects to how can we connect more to the public, to the audience. NFT is one of the ways Maxim just mentioned. Clubs could earn some money. We have been talking about blockchain, KPI. How do you measure success? I mean, there were so many interesting points and topics. I think it's been very enriching, an enriching experience, and even more with people from all around the globe, and even from a place in war. It was moving to see the testimony of Maxim, the bombs falling 500 meters from him, and he's there doing his job and engaging with esports and sports, which is very important for humanity.
Right, because sports is a big passion. I think that's the reason why people like Maxine and everyone else participated in the panels. I think what it was a great success is to generate knowledge today in the first edition of the Esports Data Club, supported by the Generalitat government in Catalonia. Thank you, Mari Carapet, so much for your support and hosting us today here in Berlin. I also want to thank again Laura Carlota Bru and Stefan Lovell for helping in the organization of the event. All the technical people behind this beautiful camera now is cheering up. I also give my salutations, and of course we couldn't have done this without you behind watching the stream. Please remember that you can access this recording later on at esportsdata.club, also in the social media of the Generalitat government in Germany, and in Loughborough University in the UK, that also supported this initiative with the collaboration of the Global Sports Innovation Hub by Tech Mahindra in India, and other stakeholders that have given their time for this to occur. So thanks again for your attention. I wish you a great day ahead, and see you next time in online or real event in Berlin. Thanks so much.